For me, I'm going to say for now, this is an overreaction. Buried him in the turf with his chin wrapped around his nostrils. He calls a timeout. Good wherewithal by Eli. Great wherewithal.
Put this to music. I don't think he stepped out either. That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen.
Welcome into another consecutive episode of the Giant Overreaction, y'all. We have been extremely active this week. I'm talking about some serious activity. We've been going live every day. Tomorrow, we'll continue the streak with the New York Giants taking on the New England Patriots in the preseason finale, and I'm definitely looking forward to that. We talked about wide receivers yesterday, and our thoughts on what wide receivers would make the roster is looking like about 6, probably maybe 7 wide receivers will make this roster. Definitely some guys on that bubble. I think spots like 3 through about 6 through 7 are going to be the most difficult ones, but guys like Lil Jordan Humphrey are definitely one that I think should make this roster. But today, we're going to be talking about the quarterback position. I know this is a hot topic. I saw my dog, D Kit, is in the building, along with the Queen Marjorie in the building, knowing that this is a hot topic. And I know that there's going to be a lot of people that want to discuss this one with Jaxson Dart, possibly getting the opportunity to maybe play more games than Russell Wilson. And this was a topic that we visited early on in the summer, around June, when Mark Schlereth came out and he said that the New York Giants should cut Jackson or should cut Russell Wilson right now and just go ahead and start Jaxson Dart week 1. And I'll put that statement on the screen for you guys so you guys can see. But again, man, welcome to the Giant Overreaction. I appreciate y'all pulling up today, rocking out with me. It's been an intriguing week with the preseason coming to a finale. And as we talked about, man, the offseason has completely just flown by. And here we are. We're just a couple of weeks out from week 1 already. Now, I do want to talk about this topic here with Jaxson Dart, and my opinions have changed just a little bit since we have seen Jaxson Dart in action in 2 preseason games here. And I would say right now that he is arguably, the best quarterback right now coming out of that 2025 NFL draft. There's just been 2 preseason games. I understand we got to pump the brakes. And Cam Ward, from an arm talent perspective, I don't think that there was any quarterback in this 2025 class that had the type of elite, I will say elite type of arm talent that Cam Ward has coming out of Miami in this 2025 NFL draft. But he has not had the great start to the preseason that Jaxson Dart has had. And we got to credit Russell Wilson for some of that as far as the leadership goes. And we also got to credit a lot of that on Brian Daboll. Jaxson Dart was his guy. He was also my realistic guy in this draft as my quarterback 2. A lot of people wanted to go out there and draft Shedeur Sanders, thinking he was the quarterback 1 or quarterback 2 in this draft, and a couple other guys. I know that Jalen Milroe was a part of the discussion as well, being that he has that running capability and how intriguing that is. And he has looked pretty good for the Seattle Seahawks thus far in the preseason. But I'm more than happy with, 1, the evaluation that I had on Jaxson Dart, and 2, the situation that has panned out now just through a couple of preseason games. But we gotta have a little bit of pause here, right? We can't jump the gun and think that, right now we need to see Jaxson Dart at week 1. But at the same time, I've been telling you guys over the last couple of streams that I think Jaxson Dart is ready right now. That's not to take away anything from Russell Wilson. I think that Russell Wilson is ready right now as well, and he has the experience over Jaxson Dart, and he also has that leadership capability. He's the veteran quarterback in the room, and I think that the right decision would be to wheel out Russell Wilson as the week 1 starter against the Washington Commanders. Now, as I spoke about earlier on our Bleacher Report channel, we talked about this comment that came from Mark Schlereth where he said the Giants should cut Russell Wilson and start Jaxson Dart. And he was talking about right now. This was way before the preseason. It was about June 20th, I believe it was, when he said this. And he also said that you're not going to the playoffs, speaking on the New York Giants, and that would be the reason why you should cut Russell Wilson and start Jaxson Dart. Now, this was the spark of this conversation because Mark Schlereth was the first person I heard say start Jaxson Dart, which, I can't give you a ton of pushback on wanting to start Jaxson Dart, but cutting Russell Wilson is an absolute asinine statement. He says you're not going to the playoffs. Well, if you're not going to the playoffs, then what's the rush of starting Jaxson Dart immediately and throwing him out there to the Wolves when you have a viable option in Russell Wilson on this roster. You could even look at Jameis Winston as a viable option as well. Now, Mark Schlereth also referenced his Denver Broncos buddy Bo Nix as the example. And I gave a little bit of pushback when we talked about this on Bleacher Report a couple of months ago because Russell Wilson went out there with the 2023 Denver Broncos and he won 8 games with a coach that did not want him. Bo Nix went out there the following year and won 10 games, and much props to Bo Nix. He shocked a lot of evaluators. Bo Nix was a guy that people were saying you should totally pass up on this guy, and he has no chance of being an NFL starter. And not only is he an NFL starter and also was drafted in the first round, but he had a ton of success in 2024. But it wasn't that much more success than what we saw from Russell Wilson. We're talking 2 more victories. I think he did that with a better defense as well. Bo Nix had just 1 win versus a team that had a record over 500 when the season came to a conclusion, and that was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, he did beat the Kansas City Chiefs in Week 18, but I like to kind of remove that game or maybe put an asterisk next to that game because Kansas City had already had their position in the playoffs locked up, and they had no starters out there in that final game against the Denver Broncos. When you look at Bo Nix's season, and I'm not trying to take anything away from Bo Nix, but the wins versus the teams that he played against, there weren't really that many impressive wins. We're talking about W's against the Jets, the Raiders, the Saints, the Panthers. Those are arguably some of the worst teams in the NFL right there. The Falcons, that was without Michael Penix Jr. The Raiders, the Browns, the Colts, and then Kansas City in Week 18 without their starters. In 2023, with Denver, Russell Wilson beat 4 teams that had a record over 500. The Kansas City Chiefs with their starters being one of them, the Buffalo Bills with their starters, the Cleveland Browns, and the Green Bay Packers. Those compilation of wins is a little bit more impressive than what we saw out of Bo Nix versus teams over 500. Again, I'm not trying to take away much from Bo Nix or throw shade at Bo Nix, but I just don't like when people try to take an outlier situation and try to use that as the example. Now, Russell Wilson finished the 2023 season right around 500, and Wilson has had a losing record in 3 of his last 4 seasons. So I'm not sitting up here telling you that Russell Wilson is the same Super Bowl winning quarterback that we saw when he was with the Seattle Seahawks. It is a very different quarterback who has not had a lot of success, in the latest destinations that he has been moved around to, right? 2 losing seasons with the Denver Broncos, 1 losing season with the Seattle Seahawks in 2021. But I just don't think the New York Giants, I can't even say I don't think, I know the New York Giants are not in a position to be able to just throw away $10 million. And that's without, mentioning guys like James Hudson, who is being paid $6 million AAV right now and does not look to be the part. And then you also got guys like Devin Singletary on the roster, who I'm pretty sure Devin Singletary, his salary this season, he's owed $6 million. So those are 2 players right there that really don't look like they're going to be contributors for the Giants in 2025, and you're already losing out on some money. So you can't afford to just throw away $10 million on Russell Wilson. The New York Giants have the 2nd lowest salary cap space in the entire NFL right now, so we're just not in that position to do that. I like Russell Wilson on this roster, whether it be as the starter once we get halfway through the season or wherever you view when it is the correct time to bring in Jaxson Dart. I just still think he's the perfect mentor for Jaxson Dart. So why cut him? I think that the better option would be to bench him when you think that Jaxson Dart is actually ready. And, when you point to guys like Bo Nix, for every Bo Nix success story, there's a story that has a tragic ending and a quick tragic ending. Guys like Johnny Manziel or guys like a Sam Darnold, who they start immediately and don't have that success because they've been thrown to the wolves when they aren't ready. Now, Sam Darnold did go on to kind of salvage his career in this last season in 2024 with the Minnesota Vikings, so you can't throw too much shade there. But there's always guys like Josh Rosen, Mitchell Trubisky, Kenny Pickett, Anthony Richardson as of late, and Daniel Jones, who has taken his space now as the starter for the Indianapolis Colts. Not every day one starter turns into a success. So I think it's that much more important to assess each situation individually and come to the right determination at the end of that. There's always guys like Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Jared Goff that start from day one and do have a little bit of success. Although for Jared Goff, it took him, at least 1 year underneath his belt to really, get the success that he truly, possessed within the talent and the skill set that he had. You know, you could blame it on coaching the first year with Jeff Fisher over there, but as soon as Sean McVay got over to the Los Angeles Rams, Jared Goff showed you that he was definitely a premier quarterback in this league. And we've seen recent benefits from guys like Jordan Love, my doppelganger, Patrick Mahomes. Jalen Hurts is a guy that had success, and he sat the bench for a little while as well. So you could put him in that mold of guys who sat the bench for at least 1 year. But when a quarterback is ready, he's ready. I think that you shouldn't complicate it. If Jaxson Dart is ready to play right now and we didn't have a viable starter on the roster, then go throw him to the Wolves. I think he's ready to go right now after seeing a couple of preseason games. Now, I do think that it is very clear that Mark Schlereth just doesn't like Russell Wilson. And we spoke about this on the Bleacher Report stream because this has now been a few consecutive seasons that Mark Schlereth has thrown a little bit of shade towards Russell Wilson. This year, entering 2025, it's the Giants should cut Russell Wilson and start Jaxson Dart. In 2024, it was Russell Wilson will start 5 games before the Steelers bench him for Justin Fields. It ultimately ended up working the opposite way. Justin Fields started the first 6 games because Russell Wilson came into the year with a calf injury. And then once he took over as a starter, Justin Fields never saw the field for the Steelers ever again as a starter. He also went on to say in 2024 that Russell Wilson is delusional. If you're not willing to admit that, then you can't fix that. The Steelers likely won't win a game after week 9 is also something that he said to enter the 2024 season. And Russell Wilson went out there and won 4 games after week 9. So I know that this is a bit of a, I guess maybe a personal issue with Mark Schlereth and Russell Wilson, but I think that that's kind of just clouding his judgment. There is some validity to if you want to see Jaxson Dart go out there and start this year, that's cool. You have the power to be able to, possess that opinion. I don't think that there's any problem with that. But having Russell Wilson on this roster as the veteran, I think that the best option would be to have him at least start week 1. But today's topic is more about, is Jaxson Dart going to start more games than Russell Wilson? Not necessarily if Jaxson Dart is going to be the week 1 starter for the New York Giants, because I think we all know that that is a foregone conclusion. Russell Wilson should be the starter week 1. And if Jaxson Dart were to come out and start week 1 against the Washington Commanders, I would absolutely be floored. But the Giants do play the Broncos in week 7 in the 2025 season. And listen, I'm hoping that Russell Wilson goes out there and wins enough games so that by the time we get to week 7, he is still the starter and he can go out there and kick some fucking ass against the Denver Broncos. That's what I'm hoping to see. If I have it my way, Jaxson Dart won't play a game this season, and Russell Wilson will go out there and win a ton of games for the New York Giants, and Jaxson Dart will get to sit, learn, hold the clipboard, and then by the time we get to 2026, we got our franchise quarterback ready to take over. Now, I wanted to preface this with the Mark Schlereth comments because today is really about something that Daniel Jeremiah said on the Pat McAfee show. And big shout out to my dog, Ben Harris, one time, man. He's always suggesting great ideas for content for me. And he's the one that showed me this clip and said, this will make for a great Giant overreaction. And this was Daniel Jeremiah speaking on the quarterback situation with the New York Giants, with Jaxson Dart and with Russell Wilson, saying that there's a great chance here that Jaxson Dart will start more games than Russell Wilson during the 2025 NFL season. Here's what Daniel Jeremiah had to say on the Pat McAfee show just a couple of days ago.
How do you feel about the situation in New York and how Jaxson Dart has looked so far in his first 2 preseason games?
Yeah, I really like the way that he's looked, and that goes back to just, he looks like the game is pretty slow for him, which is good to see. It's a lot of vanilla stuff in the preseason, but he looked very much in control. He can move around into the season. You're like, well, frick, we might as well just throw this guy out there. So whatever the plans are, they have a way of changing. But I think we'll see more of Dart this year than we do of Russell Wilson.
So that's Daniel Jeremiah's take. Big shout out to Daniel Jeremiah, man. He's definitely a real one. I got to chop it up with him over the summer about some of the quarterback situation and in the spring, actually, about who the Giants would draft at the quarterback position, man. And he's been correct on a lot of stuff lately. I know a lot of people like to say these draft analysts don't know nothing, but he literally said that the New York Giants would trade up into the first round and draft Jaxson Dart, and that is exactly what ended up happening. But here with this take, he's saying, I think this is a year where we'll see more of Jaxson Dart than we will of Russell Wilson. Now, Jaxson Dart has lit up the preseason. 14 of 16 for 137 yards, 2 total touchdowns, 0 interceptions versus the Jets. 26 of 35 for 291, 2 passing touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown over his first 2 games. This dude has impressed me. And I know New York Giants fans always like to compare stuff to the previous situation. And people are saying, hey, but we saw Daniel Jones go out there and he performed in the preseason in 2019 as well. And there's no doubt about that. But there was one thing that was a glaring issue when Daniel Jones played in the preseason of 2019. and it was the pocket awareness and the turnovers. He had a couple of fumbles, and I think that was something that New York Giants fans ignored. Whereas with Jaxson Dart, we really haven't seen a lot of negative plays from Jaxson Dart. It's been mostly positive. It's been a guy that looks in command. We saw him against the Jets go out there and run 2 drives of straight up-tempo, hurry-up offense, and he did it masterfully. So there are things that are leaning towards Jaxson Dart looking like that franchise quarterback a little bit more than I would say with Daniel Jones. And when you just talk about the eye test, man, Jaxson Dart is passing that eye test with flying colors. I mean, from a mobility standpoint, from a pocket presence standpoint. So these takes that we're seeing coming out here as we approach the season, they're not that surprising to me at all. Now, this is one thing I got to put out there. A lot of people will tell you that the preseason doesn't matter. If Jaxson Dart didn't go out here and perform the way that he did in the preseason, these conversations would likely not be happening as early as they are right now. Now, when we talked about this on Bleacher Report, I had an early projection for Russell Wilson. I thought it would be about 14 to 15 games, somewhere between 20 to 25 touchdowns, somewhere between 7, maybe 10, 11 interceptions, about 3,400 yards. I thought he'd be approaching somewhere around 40 sacks on the year. But I think that with what we've seen with Jaxson Dart, even though that was my guy coming out of the draft, I still think seeing him get out there in preseason and look that comfortable behind the New York Giants offense, it's definitely skewed my opinion just a little bit. And now when I hear these kind of takes about, hey, Jaxson Dart's probably going to play more games than a guy like Russell Wilson, it's really not that surprising to me. I do think that opening day is going to be extremely important for Russell Wilson because if he can go out there and get a hot start, I think that'll, quiet some of the talk about Jaxson Dart. Russell Wilson is an equal exact 500 on opening day. He has an opening day record of 6-6. He's also 3-3 versus the Washington Commanders in his career. And I talked about this being the tiebreaker when we spoke about it on Bleacher Report. But with all these takes coming out the way that they are about Jaxson Dart playing more games than Russell Wilson, maybe the NFL knows something a little bit more than we don't. When you see Vegas have these odds and likely are correct on a lot of their predictions, it makes you wonder, and it is a bit of a head scratcher here, but there are other people that are saying some of the exact same things. We've seen Chase Daniel actually come out and say, from early on, that Jaxson Dart should be the day one starter. This was one of the breakdowns that he had on his channel. I think I have it here in the graphics assets. Check this out. This is what Chase Daniel had to say about Jaxson Dart when he threw the touchdown to Lil Jordan Humphrey. And he was just, reiterating some of the points and showing you why Jaxson Dart could be a week 1 starter for the New York Giants.
Here's what it's like in the NFL, right? Did he check to that? He did. Oh, my gosh. Guys, watch Jaxson Dart right here. Watch his left hand. Check to this. Look at that. We didn't see that. That's what I'm talking about. He checked to it. He checked to this go route, a perfectly thrown football. That's what I'm talking about. Big time, calling your own shot, getting smoked, throwing a freaking touchdown like this. Not a great rep by 63. Hey, sometimes, you know what? You're going to get hit. Get that ball out. You can't throw it any better than this. Okay, on the ground. Let's go. He checked to it.
Now, those are things that definitely make you go, oh, maybe we want to kind of speed up the process here a little bit with Jaxson Dart. That throw actually reminds me of the Jaden Daniels throw against the Cincinnati Bengals in the regular season last year to Terry McLaurin. It was on the opposite sideline, but pressure, barreling right down in his face. For Jaden Daniels, it was coming off the edge. For Jaxson Dart, it was coming through the interior, and I think that was Jake Kubis. I know D-Kid is feeling some type of way about seeing his dog performing like that, but nonetheless, the result was a touchdown. Definitely reminded me of that play. Now, what I want to do is I want to talk about some of the other people around the NFL that are also supporting this same sentiment that Jaxson Dart is going to play more games. And ESPN's Mike Clay seems to think the exact same way as guys like Chase Daniel and guys like Daniel Jeremiah. And I do want to pull up those projections. We'll start off with Russell Wilson here. Let me see if I got these here. Yeah, we'll start off with Russell Wilson. These were the projections from ESPN's Mike Clay as far as how many games Russell Wilson would play on the season. He had him at 8 games, 1,909 passing yards, just 9 passing touchdowns in 8 games, 5 interceptions on the year, 30 rushing attempts for 120 yards, 1 rushing touchdown, and being sacked 23 times in 8 games. Now, I do think that this was a bit of an egregious take at the time, especially, like I said, this was a stream that we did back in June on Bleacher Report, right? And I understand, the skepticism, right, about a guy like Russell Wilson before camp and before what we saw in the preseason. But Brian Daboll has kind of doubled down and reiterated a bunch that Russell Wilson is the week 1 starter, and also that we have a plan for Jaxson Dart. Now, Russell Wilson, very decorated career, 10-time Pro Bowler. We all know Super Bowl champion, all that good stuff. But, man, that was a long time ago. A career record of 121 and 77 and 1 tie. This is now his 4th team. In 2024 with the Steelers, he had just 11 starts. 6-5 record, 63.7% completion percentage, 2,482 yards, which the yards is kind of interesting because when you look at the projection from Mike Clay at 1,909 in 8 starts, it's almost like he looked at the exact performance from Russell Wilson's 2024 campaign with the Steelers. He had 16 touchdowns and 5 interceptions in 2024 as well, a quarterback rating of 95.6, and he was averaging 225.6 passing yards per game at just 7.4 yards per attempt. So what I want to do here before we move on to Mike Clay's projections for Jaxson Dart, I want to play a little game of over-under with you guys, right? Because that's exactly what we did on the Bleacher Report stream. And I got a couple of nuggets as far as, Russell Wilson's career and where he kind of resides in conjunction to these projections here. So let me just pull up the chat here just so I got it on the side here. And big shout out to everybody that's in the building rocking out with your boy today on this Wednesday afternoon. So as far as the games, are you taking the over or the under on the 8 games for Russell Wilson? Now, the 11 games from 2024 was the fewest amount of games that Russell Wilson had started in a single season. Wilson has played at least 14 games in every other season as a pro. I mean, he is now 36 years old, so you got to take that with a grain of salt. For me, it's all about when Brian Daboll decides to pull the plug on Russell Wilson and bring in Jaxson Dart, if it is even going to be Jaxson Dart, right? Because there is still that slight chance that it could be Jameis Winston, depending on where we are at during the season, and also how Russell Wilson gets yanked from the lineup, whether it be from an injury or whether it be from Brian Daboll saying, okay, enough is enough. For me, I want to take the over on the games. I really do. I know that the schedule is extremely treacherous, and a lot of people are ignoring the schedule as well, but I think that does factor in, especially with the way that we start the season. We will break down, some of the things within the schedule and where we should expect Jaxson Dart to get his first start. But that start on the schedule in 2025 is absolutely treacherous. I mean, you got 2 games on the road against division rivals, and then you got to go out there and see the Los Angeles Chargers, the Kansas City Chiefs. You got the Philadelphia Eagles 2 times in a 3-week span, one of them being primetime on Thursday night. And you're going to have a short week after that. It's going to be a very tough start for the Giants. And I'm hoping that Russell Wilson can go out here and surprise. But for me, it's tough to say that could Jaxson Dart get here in under 8 games? I think it is a possibility. I'm going to take the over on Russell Wilson as far as the games go. Now, when we're talking about the passing yards here at 1,909, I really think that Russell Wilson could be knocking on the door of 2,000 in less starts than 8 starts, to be honest. But 1,909 passing yards would be a career low for Russell Wilson. 2024 was the only season where Russell Wilson threw for under 3,000 yards, and he only started in 11 games. You got to take that into consideration. His career high came in 2016, where he had 4,219 yards. Wilson had the 3rd highest amount of attempts in his career that year. He had 546 attempts that year. So it's all about the attempts with Russ Wilson. He is not like when you look at the grand total of elite quarterbacks in the NFL and guys that are, either on their way to getting a gold jacket or have one already, Russell Wilson's statistics are more in that average type of ballpark. He did have the luxury of having great defenses in Seattle, and since then he really has not had that same type of success. He's been about an average quarterback throughout his duration of being with the Denver Broncos and being with the Pittsburgh Steelers last year. Very capable. I'm not sitting up here trying to throw too much shade at him. But as far as the 1,909 passing yards, I'm going to take the over on that. I just think it would be out of Brian Daboll's character to have this plan that he's been talking about, because Brian Daboll is a guy that likes to keep the cards tight to the vest, right? And him telling us that he even has a plan, I think that it would be it would be just drastic for him to pivot off of that before 8 games. So I'm going to take the over on the games. I'm going to take the over on the yards as well. The passing touchdowns, I'm taking the over on that as well. I mean, that would be a career low at 9 passing touchdowns. Currently, his career low as far as passing touchdowns is 16. He's done that twice. And it's unfortunate that it's happened twice over the last 4 seasons here. You know, in 2024 and in 2022, he had 16 touchdowns. His career high came in 2020. So that goes to show you that, you know, he has had some recent success where he had 40 touchdowns with the Seattle Seahawks in 2020. He's thrown under 25 touchdowns just 4 times in his career. That happened in 2014, 2016, 2022, and 2024. He had 16 touchdowns in 2022 and 2024, as we described earlier. And in 2016, he had 21 touchdowns with the Seahawks. In 2014, he had 20 touchdowns with the Seattle Seahawks. He's thrown more than 25 touchdowns just 1 time in the last 3 seasons. So, you know, you never really know. And I'm not the kind of guy that likes to say, you know, hey, that guy, he's going to fall off a cliff. I've never been that guy. I don't mind being late when it comes to saying a player is going to fall off of a cliff. That's just never been my style. But we have seen a bit of a decline from Russell Wilson over the last couple of seasons here. He did have a streak of 5 seasons in a row over 25 touchdowns from 2017 to 2021. So I do see the discrepancy and the gray area, right, as far as Russell Wilson and hitting these overs possibly, because if you pull the plug on him early on, I think there's a great opportunity for Jaxson Dart to go out there and not only play more games, obviously, but also put up some better statistics. Let me tap in with the chat here. I know we haven't tapped in with the chat, and let me see how you guys are feeling about this here. I'll go backwards just so we can be a little bit more up to date on what we're talking about here. So let's see. Hyphen Wade says, I would hope he wouldn't, but BD got his own agendas for this room. That's very true. We never know what Brian Dable's going to do. Ben Ayers, big shout out my dog who came up with the concept for today's stream. He said he's taking the under. Supposedly Dable is preparing Dart in practice a ton of first reps lately. You know, it wouldn't surprise me. I think that this is, as we said on yesterday's stream about the wide receiver room and the guys who are going to take spots 3 through 6, this could be a toss-up. We really don't know, and it would not surprise me either way. If Jaxson Dart were to start more games than Russell Wilson in 2025, that's not going to surprise me. And also, if Russell Wilson starts more games, that's not going to surprise me either. The trash man is in the building. What's going on, my dog? He said he's taking the under. The way Dable has been talking about Jaxson Dart in his preseason, I think Dable is going to be looking for any way to get Dart in early. I don't agree with it, but the signs point to the under. This is a really good point here, too. But now, this is something I think we need to factor in as well. If Dable is, you know, in self-preservation mode at all with his job as being the head coach for the New York Giants, I think it would serve him better in waiting to play Jaxson Dart, because the longer he waits, the longer that leash is. I think that John Mara has given the keys to Brian Dable, not only for this year, but it's also a reason why I expect Brian Dable to be back in 2026, is because Joe Schoen and John Mara allowed Brian Dable to draft his guy. I think that would be really interesting to be able to fire Brian Dable before he got a chance to really get his future quarterback on the field. So I think the longer he waits, the better it is for Brian Dable's job security and self-preservation. But at the end of the day, if you're losing games, that also is not going to look good for your job security moving on into the future as well. Kareem Yee says he's taking the over. Let me see. D-Kid, I'm going backwards. D-Kid said, who wants to know which one is D-Kid in here? Leave the race said, which one is D-Kid in here? Big shout out to D-Kid, man. D-Kid is a guy that really, you know, puts in the work and puts in the time looking at these prospects, studying the team, knowing all of the personnel, being very familiar with the roster, and not just for the New York Giants. That goes for, you know, all teams, all 32 teams across the NFL. So I do value D-Kid's opinion. Me and D-Kid had some great conversations through DM about who the New York Giants were going to draft at the quarterback position and what they would do with the 3rd overall selection as well. And we were pretty locked in as far as how we viewed that, man. So big shout out to D-Kid for being here today and rocking out with us. Scotty Trippin, I like that name right there, says he's taking the O on it. He says, I think the schedule is exactly why, and that's why he's taking the O. I like that take right there. Let me see. No Mets, no Nets, no Jets says once you start Dart, you can't pull them. That's very true. That is very true. Hyphen Wade says he's taking the over. If the plan goes, the plan goes. I feel you on that. Let's see. 59 Ways to Groove says over. The Illa says he's taking the push on this one. I'm surprised you taking the easy route out on this one, the Illa. Shout out to the Illa, man. He was a big reason why we spoke about Abdul Carter at the 3-tech position on our 2 streams ago, actually. And the Illa's out there putting out some fire content that's sneaking under the radar, man. I definitely recommend you guys go over there and subscribe to the Illa's YouTube channel, man. Definitely some good vibes over there. No Met says push. It's hard to call. Gregory says he's taking the under. Gregory in here representing them Dallas Cowboys. I can't wait to start talking some NFC East stuff with my dog, the Beard Man, because I got a lot of takes for your Dallas Cowboys this year. It's going to be an interesting year in the NFC East. Let me see. 1T is in the building. Okay, big shout out my dog 1T in the building. Shout out Rick Nicolini. He says, what's up? It's Rick from Tijuana. Seems like you can't be a rookie that sits in the city that never sleeps, LOL. It will be interesting to see how Dable and Shane stand up to the impatience of the New York Giants fan base. That is so true, man. I'm looking forward to seeing how this year pans out. I think regardless of what happens from a record standpoint or from how the New York Giants are going to play out there this year, it's going to be a fun year. I think we're going to get back to at least having fun, which for me, the last real fun season, 2022 was kind of fun, but I knew it was a little bit of smoke and mirrors. But 2018 was the last fun season for me when we had Odell Beckham out there running reverses and throwing deep shots to Saquon Barkley. It was, not a good year as far as the record goes, but I was definitely having some fun. NYC1T said, I got the opposite of whatever D-Kid says. Big shout out my dogs, man, from the group chat in the building today, rocking out with us. Let's see. Lewis R says, give Jaxson Dart the Jordan Love treatment. I'm not mad at that at all. Let me see. Mr. Waldo says Russ is going to cook in December, so minimum 13 games. Wouldn't that be a beautiful thing? You can't forget that the New York Giants are going to be featured on the NFC East version of Hard Knocks in the winter. So if Russell Wilson is absolutely cooking in December, to be able to see that every week on Hard Knocks, I'm here for it, man. Y'all know my background is in audio engineering and cinematography. I love me some Hard Knocks, man. That's one of my favorite shows, and looking forward to seeing the New York Giants on it. And if Russ is cooking in December, man, that'll be great. And that would also be the polar opposite of what we saw with the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2024, where a lot of people like to say that Russell Wilson fell apart in the last 5 games of the season. I don't necessarily agree with that, but Russell Wilson was definitely not cooking in December in 2024. The Illa says, we can't be worried about a young quarterback struggling. It's going to happen. Eli Manning, his rookie year, played a game against the Ravens where he only completed 4 passes in 3 quarters. I was at that game. That's a fact, man. Eli Manning came in as a rookie, and I want to say he went 0-7 to start off his career as well, when Kurt Warner was looking pretty decent those first couple of games in the season. I think the Giants were sitting right around 500. So, rookie quarterbacks are going to struggle. Even Joe Burrow came out there and he struggled behind a terrible offensive line, ended up tearing his ACL, came back the next season with Jamar Chase, and the rest is history. Even Josh Allen struggled as a rookie as well and as a sophomore. He struggled his first 2 seasons, but I think that most NFL fans knew that Josh Allen, the talent was apparent, and it was there, and they had their guy as far as the future of the franchise. Kareem Yee is in the building, says if Dart was having a rough preseason, the Shador stands would be having a field day with ripping the Giants. You already know, man. Listen, I've said this a bunch of times already on a bunch of streams in the past couple of weeks here. I am just ecstatic. And I don't care how it pans out. Shador Sanders could turn into a Hall of Fame quarterback and be the best quarterback since Tom Brady. I don't give a shit. I am ecstatic that we are not having to deal with that fiasco and that shit show that is happening with the Cleveland Browns right now. You go into the comment section of anything that has to do with the quarterback position with the Cleveland Browns, and it is just an absolute debacle. It's made me look at social media a little bit differently, actually, because people are allowing their emotions to blur what they are seeing with their eyes. I think Shador Sanders has a chance to be a decent quarterback in this league, and I'm rooting for him. I hope he does well, along with Dylan Gabriel. But the way that people have a discrepancy in judging the 2 quarterbacks for the Cleveland Browns and their performance, it just goes to show you that there's a bunch of favoritism happening in the NFL. And people will say, it's just because, this guy's he's the son of a former NFL player, but that's not the case. When you look at Brandon Rice, the former, the son of a former NFL, I'm not even going to say one of the best wide receiver the game has ever seen in Jerry Rice, you don't see this type of fiasco surrounding him. I think it has a lot to do with personality, also along with that, just that, I don't want to say arrogant, that's not the right word, but a confident, boisterous type of personality from Deion Sanders. I think that that's kind of trickling into the way that people assess what they're seeing with Shador Sanders. I wish him well, but at the end of the day, I'm glad that that's not happening in the New York Giants market, because it would not be fun to be a content creator or whatever you want to call that I do over here on YouTube while we're having to deal with that kind of a shit show surrounding the quarterback position. So I'm happy to see that not happening with us. Ben Ayers says, I see Dart playing more games than Russ, maybe 11 games versus 6. I'm not mad at that take. I think that's as early as it's probably going to get. Let me see. Lewis R says, did his parents actually name him Lil Jordan? They did. I'm pretty sure they did, because they have a son already. I'm pretty sure I read this somewhere, that his parents had a son already named Jordan, and there was something about like wanting to have another Jordan or last name Jordan or something crazy going on where they were like, you know what, we're just going to name him Lil Jordan. And I think that is his birth name. So it is an interesting name. You know, I'm all for the twisting of the vernacular and creating some hood names. I'm all for that, man. I know a couple of homies that got names like that for real. Lewis also said that Russ and Jameis are our two quarterbacks until the bye. Then we go with Dart. I don't quite agree with that all the way, but I'm not too mad at that take. Victor Castro said, Gregory, facts. The man has a fire burning in him right now, and the team is stacked. Plus, he'll be running the same concepts he ran when he was winning in Seattle, so he's poised for a comeback. I hope you guys are right, man, because I do think that Russell Wilson has a lot of gas left in the tank. But at the end of the day, I look at Jaxson Dart, and I'm like, man, it's intriguing. He definitely looks ready right now. Calipri, I could be wrong on that. I'm going to call the homie KP for right now. KP said, I feel like if Dart starts, it means something has gone wrong in other places for us. I hope that he gets time to develop, and I hope Russ balls out for us. That's my wish as well. I definitely agree with that take. Shout out Total Package 210 in the building. Total Package 210 said Russell needs to win 2 to 3 games to remain the starter by week 7. That is a nice threshold, bro. I like that. You know, I want to see how Russell Wilson performs under this kind of pressure. I'm looking forward to it, to be honest, you know. And I like this benchmark that you set for him. Give us 2 wins by week 7. There shouldn't be no talk about bringing in Jaxson Dart. Totally agree. Gregory said that Wilson wants to make a statement this year. He has something to prove at this point in his career, and I think that's the one that KP was. Oh no, that wasn't KP. That was who was it that was responding to Gregory? I can't remember who it was, but I think that's what the response was to. Yeah, I like this. I do think that Russell Wilson wants to make a statement. He's had 2 teams pretty much give up on him in the past, and I like this. You know, this is a great opportunity for Russell Wilson to kind of re-spark his career. Leave the Race says, Lil Jordan Humphrey getting first-team reps. Yeah, he was getting first-team reps. And I mean, you can't – I think a lot of people are looking a little bit too deep into the first-team reps with the wide receivers. You can't forget that Malik Neighbors has, not been participating in practice. He did get back to practice yesterday, so that leaves a void there that one of the backups would have to take first-team reps. Normally, that would have probably been Jalen Hyatt, but he was also dealing with an injury. So in return, that's why you're seeing Lil Jordan Humphrey and Bo Collins both getting some first-team reps, not only in training camp and in practice, but also out there in preseason games. So don't look too far into that would be my suggestion. 59 Ways to Groove said Dart will play the last 3 games. I'm calling it. Okay. I like that. I think he'll play the last 3 games and some more. We'll see what's going on with that. JW said even Josh Allen looked rough his first year. He started 11 games, and that really wasn't the plan for them. They had brought in Derek Anderson, and I feel like there was another guy in that quarterback room too. Maybe it was Nathan Peterman. I mean, Nathan Peterman, that dude's absolute. I ain't going to disrespect. He's not my type of player. I'm not going to disrespect, though, but his debut was one of the worst debuts we've seen from a quarterback. I think he threw 3 or 4 interceptions in his debut. Total Package said Dart needs more time to understand complex defenses as he ain't ready. I'm not too mad at that take either, because we all know that, like, there are, vanilla defenses that are thrown out there in the preseason. There was a clip of, I think it was Jahmyr Gibbs and Amon-Ra St. Brown speaking on what they saw from the Chicago Bears and Ben Johnson in their preseason games. And they were pretty much just like, it's kind of funny seeing some of the preseason plays that we had to run get ran in their game and saying how they were identical. And Ben Johnson even came back and said, like, yeah, we running the same stuff in preseason. There's a lot of vanilla stuff. So this is a good point here. And this is something that people should pay attention to when, allowing the preseason performances from Jaxson Dart to kind of get you a little bit hype. This type of comment should get you to get your feet back on ground and come back down to earth a little bit here. I like that. That's a great point right there. Louis R. said, we're going to suck this year, but next year will be our year. Get Harbor and offensive line in the first 2 rounds, and we are good. Yeah, I think it's going to be a tough year for us, but I'm not ruling out the possibility that the New York Giants could go out there and, maybe surprise some folks this year, because the defense could be, that backbone for this team. And if that's the case, when you have a good defense like that, you don't need to score as many points. Let me give you an example. The Houston Texans had just 5 more passing touchdowns than the New York Giants did last year. And the New York Giants had the fewest passing touchdowns of any team in the entire National Football League. But the Houston Texans made the playoffs. And they did that with a lot of injuries up front, a lot of injuries to that wide receiver core. They still found a way to get into the playoffs. So when you have great defense, you definitely can give your team an opportunity to go out there and possibly win some games. Same thing with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like, Russell Wilson last season, he was the beneficiary of getting great field position from the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. There were times where he had short fields, and it was just an easy walk-in type of vibe to go out there and get the touchdown. So if this defense, and that's why I've been saying over the last week here, if the pass rush gets home and the Giants defense can be that front-running unit, the Giants got a chance to win a lot of games, because if you can keep things low on the scoreboard, like we saw last year against the Buffalo Bills, which in my opinion should have absolutely been a victory, like we saw against the New Orleans Saints where we lost that game 14-11, and I thought Wan'Dale Robinson had a critical moment in that game late on the last drive where Drew Lock hit him with a ball that was a little bit short, but that could have won that game, and Wan'Dale Robinson couldn't come up with it. There were plenty games like that. The Cincinnati Bengals game was like that. The Dallas Cowboys game at MetLife was like that. These were games that were one-score games throughout the majority of the duration of the game, but late in those games, we couldn't close out. If our defense can be that much better, I do think we got an opportunity to go out here and maybe shock the world and win maybe 8, maybe 9 games and possibly find a way to sneak into the playoffs. But if I'm betting my hard-earned money on it, I'm looking at the New York Giants as being a 6 or 7 win team in 2025. Let's see what else we got, and then we'll keep it pushing. Victor Castro said that Mark Schlereth is a Giants hater, though, so his opinion is invalid to me. I ain't mad at that. It do seem like that, like, especially with Russell Wilson. He definitely seems like he's throwing a lot of unnecessary shade his way. Shout out Kenneth Perkins one time in the building. Kenneth Perkins said, I hope they keep Collins, Juice Wells, Montrell Washington, and Bly and Cambry. There's no way they're going to keep all those guys. That's for fact, right? You're looking at what? Let me see. Collins, UDFA. Juice Wells, UDFA. Washington, a journeyman. Jordan Bly, UDFA. Dylan Cambry, UDFA. I don't think there's any way we're going to keep 4 UDFAs. You got to think about it like this. There's 3 wide receivers that have their spot guaranteed on the New York Giants. That's Malik Neighbors, Darius Slayton, and Wan'Dale Robinson. I want to throw Jalen Hyatt in there. I don't think they're going to give up on Jalen Hyatt, but let's just say 3 for the sake of the argument here. That would only allow 3 or 4 more spots, and you need one of these guys to be a special team specialist, right? You need a wide receiver who can play 2 roles, who can be a kick or a punt returner, and also, be able to be a guy who could serve as a depth role for the wide receiver room. So I don't think there's any way that all of these guys are going to make it. For me, I had Montrell Washington making the roster simply because there's not really many slot guys that are already having a locked up spot here. It's really just Wan'Dale Robinson. Now, you could say, hey, maybe we supplement Juice Wells for that, but I don't think there's any way that they're going to keep Juice Wells and Montrell Washington. But from what I saw from Montrell Washington in that Buffalo Bills game, the way that he had DeMar Hamlin on skates on the sideline there, and the quickness, the elusivity, the ability to catch the ball and go and create and get that yak, I'm a big fan of Montrell Washington. But also, Bo Collins has had a really good camp, and he shined in that game. That was the Jets game, where he had the big 80-yard reception on the first throw of the day from Russell Wilson. So for me, I kind of, prioritize those 2 guys in the hierarchy of the wide receiver room here, but I just don't think that all of them are going to be able to make the roster. And that's unfortunate because they all have had pretty good camps and have all played really well. Even Cambry had the nice catch from Jameis Winston, which was the best throw that we've seen in the preseason there. Jameis Winston hit him with a nice dart where he avoided some pressure, rolled out to his right, and on a very thin plane and on a thin line, in a tight window, made a really good throw. But again, I just don't see all of those guys making the roster here. I don't think, I'd have to go back and look at the history of the NFL, but to see like 3 to 4 UDFAs in one unit make the team, that would be a very big shocker for me. Let me see. DeIlla said, I don't know what Mark was thinking when he made that statement. Yeah, like that's just a hot take where I'm just like, and I told y'all this on yesterday's stream, like the way that we're seeing journalism and national, sports media just be so reliant upon a hot take, it's getting frustrating, man, because, I try to pride myself on, 1, bringing value, but 2, being very honest and transparent. Whether a take will age a certain way, I don't know if it's going to age a certain way, but in real time, I like to try to assess things in reality, right? Like try to come to the conclusion and make points that support a realistic take. Cutting Russell Wilson, this is just the craziest statement I've heard, man. And right after they signed him, I mean, Russell Wilson was, signed a couple of months before Mark Schlereth made those comments. It's just an interesting comment to make. Lewis said, start Dart after the bye. Marjorie says, I believe Dart is ready. However, I would stick with Wilson, would not want to screw up the team dynamics, at least for now. I'm right there with you on that. DeIlla said, what up, authentic, working, but at least I made it in here for the live. Big shout out to DeIlla, man. He's one of the most hard working dudes in the Giants content creation community, man. So when I see videos pop up on my timeline from the Illa, I know I got to go check them out. Let's see. Let's just kind of catch up with the chat. I see Nick the Wick is in the building. What's going on, Nick? Hope all is well. Scotty Trippin said it just feels good to be excited about Giants football again. I'm right there with you. Mr. Waldo said, nah, Warner was leading the league in fumbles when he got benched. He had a messed up thumb. Yeah, that's true, but I mean, the record, I know the record was somewhere around 500. And Eli Manning came in and proceeded to not win a game for the rest of the year. So if you're looking at it from a perspective of like, hey, we wanted to win games in 2004, I don't think Eli Manning gave us the best shot as a rookie, but he did come back in his sophomore year and he started winning games. I want to say Eli's, maybe that was either his second or his third year, he won 11 games. I know that. Scotty Trippin said, facts, dudes on X talking about some on my way to hate, watch Jaxson Dart. Yeah, man, it's frustrating, man. It's frustrating. I saw a couple of tweets today, and y'all know me, I like to keep receipts. And, you know, when we do these Giant Overreaction shows, I like to search for tweets that fit, you know, what we're talking about and fit the concept and what we're talking about as far as the topic goes. And I saw a couple of Jaxson Dart tweets that had like 25,000 likes on it. And it was like, New York Giants go from Daniel Jones to Jaxson Dart, like, you know, throwing shade at Jaxson Dart. This was before the preseason. And, boy, them takes is aging like dog shit right now. It's terrible. But that's why I'm kind of like, you know, these days on Twitter, I choose my battles. Like, if you say something that, like today, for instance, right, I had somebody tell me that the New York Giants 2025 team going into the year is better than the 2021 Super Bowl team that we saw from the Los Angeles Rams. And I was like, this is so asinine, I got to say something. And he was trying to support it by saying that Dexter Lawrence is better than Aaron Donald, that Paulson Adebo is a better coverage corner than Jalen Ramsey was in his prime, that the New York Giants have an all-pro left tackle, you know, dismissing Andrew Whitworth from the Los Angeles Rams. I'm trying to think of some of the other stuff that he was trying to say that supported this. Oh, he talked about the quarterback room being better. And I'm like, well, they had Matthew Stafford, man. Like, Matthew Stafford's a, you know, better quarterback than Russell Wilson is, and you could argue better than any other quarterback on the roster. We haven't seen Jaxson Dart in a regular season game. But it was just one that I just couldn't avoid. But for the most part, I just, you know, people say stupid shit on my Twitter timeline, and I'll just like it and just keep it pushing because it's just getting frustrating trying to debate with people that, you know, just the most delusional takes you will ever see. And at times, I just got to just let it pass. D-Kit says, who hits the pine first, Authentic? JMS or Russell Wilson? What a fire question from my dog, D-Kit. Damn, that's tough, D-Kit. That's tough, bro. That's tough. I'm going to say Russell Wilson. God damn, I'm going to say Russell Wilson? You put me on the spot, dog. I'm going to say Russell Wilson simply because I think that the backup option right now for Russell Wilson is a much better player than the backup option is for JMS. JMS has struggled, and it would not surprise me to see if he gets benched. And honestly, I might have been the first person to even put this narrative out there. I remember talking about this with Ben Harris way back, like in maybe like April, where we were talking about if JMS struggles, that you got to move GVR to the center position, right? And I know now a lot of people have been talking about that, but you got to move GVR to center and then possibly try to experiment with bringing in maybe an Evan Neal, Jake Kubis, maybe even a Joshua Ezidu, because he has had some great tape in the preseason at the guard position as well. But you got to just put your best offensive lineman out there. And I know I'm saying that Russell Wilson, you know, to answer your question, that Russell Wilson would hit the pine first. Damn, man, that's tough right there. I'm going to stick with it for now. I'm going to say Russell Wilson. I just think that the Giants are a little bit too invested in JMS. And again, I think it's because the backup behind him is not as good. Evan Neal's preseason campaign has not been all that great either. So moving GVR to center, if you got to move Evan Neal to right guard, I ain't that confident in that. But that's a hell of a question, D-Kid. That's why me and D-Kid rock with each other, man. Talking ball is because, like, D-Kid be thinking of shit like that. That's definitely one. Let me see. D-Kid said JMS is a liability, Ben. Leave the Race said only way is if GVR gets hurt early and Neal comes in and looks solid, then GVR just comes back to replace JMS. That's the way I look at it too, but I don't have faith in Evan Neal looking solid. That's the tough part for me, is Evan Neal looking solid. I just don't know about that portion of it. Let's see. D-Kid said, worst player on the starting 22 is JMS. Damn. You ain't lying. You ain't lying. Scorpio Francis says, what we're watching, the Steelers D was horrible most of Wilson's starts. That is just what were you watching last year, bro? Listen, I know this off the top of my head because I've looked at every one of Russell Wilson's snaps on the All-22. So before the last 5 games of the season, let me finish reading it. I overreacted a little bit. Let me finish reading it. He says, what are we watching? The Steelers' defense was horrible most of Russell Wilson's starts. They gave up more than 30 a game for like 7 games in a row. That is absolutely wrong right there, okay? So for Russell Wilson's first starts when he first got in the lineup before the last 5 games of the season, the Pittsburgh Steelers defense was allowing 17 points per game. When they got to the last 5 games of the season, which was against superior competition, let me see if I can remember it. It was the Philadelphia Eagles, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Baltimore Ravens 2 times, and Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals, who were on absolute fire the last 5 games of the season, and they won all 5 of those games. That number increased from 17 points per game to 27 points per game. Go back and look at it. I got it on our page, right? You can look at it on our page to save yourself a lot of the time here. I have condensed every one of Russell Wilson's snaps on scoring drives from Denver and from the Pittsburgh Steelers. You can check it out for yourself. It's only a 5 to 10 minute video to give you a refresher on it. Go and look at the amount of times that the drive starts from like the opposing team's 20, 30-yard line, or when he starts on their 50 or above. Go back and check that out. I think you might need a bit of a refresher on that because Pittsburgh's defense was getting after the quarterback all year long, and they were stopping the run. They were a good defense throughout the entire year. But when they got to them last 5 games, which I think is a big reason why a lot of people like to say Russell Wilson fell apart. One, it was just that they were playing better competition. When you're looking at all those teams that I just listed, the Baltimore Ravens twice who were in the AFC Championship, the Philadelphia Eagles who won the damn Super Bowl, the Cincinnati Bengals who really, really should have got that last playoff spot over the Denver Broncos, but the Kansas City Chiefs decided to rest their starters in Week 18 and gave them the victory. Those are all very, very, very difficult teams to go up against, especially when you're talking about from a defensive standpoint. So I got to go against this one right here. Maybe you got some supporting evidence that can pivot me off of my stance. But, yeah, I've looked at all those games. A ton, man, a ton. I've done deep studies on that whole last 5 games of Russell Wilson with the Pittsburgh Steelers and also looked at every one of his snaps, man. I'm here all day in this studio looking at tape, man, all day long. But, if you think that defense was giving up 30 points for the majority of the season, or you said like 7 games, so let me give you that. But throughout the entirety of that year, that defense was good, and they weren't allowing a lot of points. And that's why Russell Wilson was able to go out there and win as many games as he did last year, or at least a portion of the reason why. Let's see what else we got here. Scotty Trippin is talking about he's the only real big body in the wide receiver room. I think he's talking about Lil Jordan Humphrey when he mentions this right here. Hyphen Wade said, hate to see my former JMU Duke be on the outs, but he regressed since he transferred. I would like to see Washington or Collins on his team. Yeah, those are the 2 UDFAs that I'm looking at the most, man. It's Montrell Washington, who I think has an opportunity to be the backup slot, and then it absolutely could be Bo Collins as well. Bo Collins has showed out. Marjorie says Gunnar Olszewski will make the roster. It wouldn't surprise me, but it would have to be between either Amir Smith-Marset or Gunnar. I think one of the 2 is going to make the roster because they have that special teams capability. But I just think Amir Smith-Marset has came out with a little bit more juice this year and looked a little bit faster. And I like the productivity that we got from him on kick returns and punt returns last year. I know he took the one 99 yards. I think it was a kickoff return that he took 99 yards. But Gunnar Olszewski also had that punt return. I want to say if it wasn't last season, it was the year before that where he took a punt return like 90 yards or something like that to the house too. So wouldn't surprise me if Gunnar is the guy. But I do think that it would be over Amir Smith-Marset for sure. Shout out my dog Sebastian in the building one time representing the Zoe. You know what it is, man. Stock passe mon cher. He said, I said this to my sister yesterday. Nowadays, national media is addicted to ratings and clicks, not solid content. Yeah, that's where it's at, man. It's unfortunate. It's definitely unfortunate. And it looks like we got 2 super chats here, man. Shout out to y'all for supporting the channel. My dog D-Kit. Shout out to D-Kit, man. Every time D-Kit come around, he supports the channel. And y'all know me, I'm not one of these people that's going to be begging y'all for likes or begging for super chats or begging for whatever, attention, any of that stuff. But big shout out to D-Kit, man, because supporting this channel absolutely goes a long way. He says, I'm not thinking the Giants are going to be very active bringing in players on cutdown day. Just doesn't feel like it to me. We do need to create some cap space, authentic. Belly, Nacho. I would be more in support of releasing Nacho than I would be of releasing Daniel Bellinger. I know you could save $3 million if you release Daniel Bellinger, but to me, he is just a great security blanket at the tight end position, a guy that has had a 90% catch rate throughout his entire career. He caught all 14 of his targets last year, 2 contested targets last year as well. I just think that there's really no real reason why Daniel Bellinger, 1, should be in the doghouse, 2, should have had Theo Johnson drafted over him. I do think that Theo Johnson has a great future ahead of him, and he could be, one of those guys for this team. But I just think that the way that Joe Schoen has addressed the tight end position every year since he's been here has been a little bit egregious. And for that to still be a position that has a bunch of question marks still surrounding that unit is still a little bit puzzling, along with the cornerback unit, right? Like, Joe Schoen has spent more draft picks on tight end and defensive backs over any other position. And those are 2 positions that you could argue are some of the weaker units on the New York Giants team right now. So for me, I'd like to keep Bellinger. I think Nacho is a bit expendable, especially bringing in Roy Robertson Harris, who's, I love the comments that I heard from some of the coaches over the past week here, where they were saying, he's a guy that he plays with tenacity, and it's hard for him to show that in training camp and practices when you got red shirts on these quarterbacks and you can't hit them. But when you see him in the games, definitely raised the level of play. We still got Darius Alexander, who we drafted in the 3rd round, and that's one of my guys. I know that was one of your guys as well, D-Kid. I would have spent a 2nd-round draft pick on Darius Alexander, and I know that in camp it has not panned out the way that most people have wanted to see it pan out, but I still have high hopes for Darius Alexander. Who else we got that we can shift into that position? Chauncey Golston's another guy that I think could get out there and be, playing 3-tech and be on that interior portion of the defensive line as well. So I think we're pretty set, and I think we could release Nacho to save a little bit of room there. But the Giants got to find a way to definitely get some more money here. And for me, it would be nice to have some dollars to bring in one more wide receiver, especially after cut day. But I just don't think the New York Giants are going to be truly in that position to be able to do that this year. But another good topic that D-Kit is bringing up here, man. D-Kit need to start his own damn podcast, because D-Kit be talking some good stuff. Shout out to the dog, King Dulce, in the building one time. He said, what's worse, the handling of the Daniel Jones contract / cutting of the team, or the Atlanta Falcons paying Cousins and drafting Penix? I'm going to go, it's not even close, Dulce. The paying Daniel Jones, that is one of the worst moves that I've ever seen a franchise ever make. My questions after the 2022 season were, we've never seen a quarterback put out that minimal type of statistics, right? And go out there and get paid that type of middle range type of market money that Daniel Jones got. And for me, it was the guarantees. Guaranteeing a guy that had gone, let me think about how many straight seasons this was. He had gone 4 straight seasons without throwing over 15 passing touchdowns. You just can't do that kind of shit. And with the guys that were on the market at the time, and this was a topic that literally, till this day, people still don't fuck with me over, because I was so egregious and just so over the top about how important it was for the New York Giants to move on from Daniel Jones after the 2022 playoff performance, because people wanted to crown Daniel Jones as the reasoning why we were in the playoffs. But if you go back and you just look at the box scores, but more importantly, you should just look at the tape. When the New York Giants got off to that quick start, 6-2 or whatever it was, 6-1, a lot of that was on the back of Saquon Barkley, not Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones' success in the running game, as far as, being a dual threat quarterback, a lot of that was also because of Saquon Barkley. Teams aren't stacking the box against Tyrone Tracy. Tyrone Tracy, I want to say, he saw a stacked box with more than 7 defenders in the box on 5% of his attempts. Saquon's not quite the same. You got to stack the box to stop Saquon. So when we got off into the 2023 offseason, I saw Baker Mayfield on the market for $4 million. I saw Marcus Mariota leaving the Atlanta Falcons, and he had just been coming off of a contract as a starter for them for just $9 million AAV. You could have brought in Marcus Mariota to be the bridge quarterback for like $3 or $4 million. We still had Tyrod Taylor on the roster. Why not just roll with Tyrod Taylor? So I look at that as just much more egregious. Paying Kirk Cousins the $200 million that they paid him, $50 million AAV. What I didn't like about it is where they had the out in the contract, because I think that the out in the contract was either after 2 or 3 seasons, and then you spend a first-round top 10 draft pick on Michael Penix Jr., he was one of my favorite quarterbacks in that draft. I think a lot of people were overlooking the arm talent that Michael Penix Jr. brought to the table. And I always thought that Michael Penix Jr. was a first-round pick. To me, it really made no sense that people were saying that J.J. McCarthy is a first-round pick, but Michael Penix Jr. is not. I don't know what people were looking at. And I had the luxury of seeing a lot of their all-22 from both of those quarterbacks in that offseason. So for me, I got to say that, the Atlanta Falcons paying Kirk Cousins, they just double-dipped, right? I'm trying to think about when the Kansas City Chiefs paid Alex Smith the money that they paid him, because ultimately it's a very similar situation. They paid Alex Smith that whatever amount of money it was that was like middle of the range market at the time. And then they ended up drafting Patrick Mahomes with the 10th overall selection, I believe it was, and then they sat him for a year. The difference is that with Michael Penix Jr., they pulled the plug on Kirk Cousins a little bit faster and decided, hey, the future is now, in a very key, pivotal playoff run for the Atlanta Falcons as well. They were still in the mix in the NFC South at the time, because the Tampa Bay Buccaneers had not quite, created a gap between them and the next team. So it was an interesting move at the time, but I still got to say that, yeah, much more egregious from the New York Giants paying Daniel Jones. And listen, this is why I'm also willing to give Joe Schoen a bit of a clean slate here, because in my heart of hearts, I think that paying Daniel Jones that $40 million a year, I really do think that came from the top down from John Mara. And in the past, I've discussed, that, I've placed a lot of the blame on Joe Schoen on that. But since I've had Sean Morash from WFAN tell me that, yeah, he had a plug tell him that move came from up top. He couldn't expose the plug, but more and more I'm just thinking that one move in a vacuum doesn't look like any of the other moves that Joe Schoen has done during his tenure here with the New York Giants. So a lot of the times my theme has been that Joe Schoen is a guy that is learning on the job. And, being that he was a young general manager, you got to make some of those mistakes early on. He definitely made a mistake with Xavier McKinney, and you see that with the signing of Javon Holland. He's trying to clean that up now as we speak. So, yeah, I definitely got to go with the New York Giants being the more egregious and the more, incompetent move from the two organizations there. Let's see. Hyphen Wade said the O-line was meh, but his processing was asinine. His ability was miss more than hit, and he just has this essence I can't deal with. I guess he's talking about J.J. McCarthy, and TCCAA says J.J. McCarthy is mid. Just to speak on this real quickly a little bit, I think that J.J. McCarthy and Jaxson Dart, at least coming out of college, from my perspective of viewing a lot of all-22 on both of those quarterbacks, I think that they play, from a passing standpoint, very similar. We got more of a sample size from Jaxson Dart because at Michigan, J.J. McCarthy didn't throw the ball that much. They were predominantly a run-first type of team. But when you look at the skill set, being able to throw on the run, I thought J.J. McCarthy was one of the better quarterbacks from the 2024 draft class how he threw on the run. I think Jaxson Dart has a very similar capability. Arm velocity, arm talent, arm strength, all of those things, they look very similar. They are guys that I think are above average when it comes to those characteristics and categories, but they don't have the elite type of arm strength, elite arm talent, right? But they good enough to be able to succeed in the NFL. I think where Jaxson Dart might separate himself from J.J. McCarthy is the mobility. And that's not to say that J.J. McCarthy can't be mobile. I just think when it comes from a durability standpoint, being tough and running between the tackles, being able to design runs around the quarterback, I think that Jaxson Dart gives you a little bit more opportunity to do those things. But I know that a lot of people like to look at mid as, not necessarily average. A lot of people look at mid as, man, he's not good. I think J.J. McCarthy's going to be just fine. And I'm rooting for him. And he's got an ideal situation over there with the Minnesota Vikings, man. He's got a set of the best weapons in the NFL with Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson, T.J. Hawkinson, good running backs. Offensive line is solid. He should be able to go out there and be able to have success. Maybe not the grand type of success we saw from Sam Darnold last year, but I think he should have a lot of success. Let's see what else we got. And then I do want to show you guys the projections from ESPN's Mike Clay for Jaxson Dart as well. And we can play a little bit of over-under on that as well. Sebastian says, I'm just glad DJ is not on this team anymore. He literally was a cancer to this team and fan base. Yeah, he was. And, there's a part of it that wants me to give Daniel Jones the pass as far as the fan base, because his play didn't warrant there, to be this opinion, to be so divided in our fan base. Like, Daniel Jones was not good. He just wasn't. And I don't know why people could not come to a clear consensus, a concise evaluation on Daniel Jones after 6 years. Like, we were going into year 6 and you had content creators coming out saying, like, this is the last year for Daniel Jones. No, I told y'all when we started the year, after the Houston Texans preseason game where Daniel Jones went out there on his third throw and threw a pick 6 and then ended up throwing another interception, I said, I do not give a shit what Daniel Jones does this year. He could go out there and have a Patrick Mahomes-like year where he threw 40 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. I don't want him back. I like to take the best year from a player, forget a quarterback. I like to take the best year and the worst year, remove those. What do you have in between that? That's normally what you have at that player. And a lot of people all too often like to take 1 year, an outlier year, and utilize that as a reason why we should be, having some kind of optimism moving forward for a certain player. And for me, it just wasn't that. Going into 2021, I placed lofty expectations on Daniel Jones, and I said the expectation is he should have 30 touchdowns and 4,000 yards. He didn't do it. People blamed it on, Kenny Galladay's washed, Kadarius Toney is a terrible draft pick, the old line, Brian Dable, whatever you want. It wasn't even Brian Dable, it was Joe Judge at the time. Jason Garrett was getting all the blame. All he runs is sticks, concepts, and all this, all sticks. Daniel Jones wasn't the guy, and unfortunately, a lot of other people got blamed for it. Honestly, you could look at the Jason Garrett, Joe Judge tenure with Daniel Jones. I want to say it's 2021. It might have been 2020. I want to say it's 2021. That was Daniel Jones' best year. He looked the best during that year. 2022 was smoke. People were like, what about the rushing touchdowns and all that stuff? Daniel Jones didn't look good outside of a few games. The Chicago Bears game, he looked good. The Green Bay Packers game, he looked good on a couple of drives. The Indianapolis Colts game, can't remove those games from him. He played well in those games. But what has been the issue with Daniel Jones throughout his whole entire career? Consistency. Daniel Jones went 40 straight games over a 3 to 4 year span where he did not put together back-to-back performances with at least 2 passing touchdowns. What other quarterback can we even say that about? Tommy DeVito came in 2023, and his first 2 starts, he had back-to-back games with more than 1 passing touchdown, with multiple passing touchdowns. He also had a 300-yard game where Daniel Jones went, all the way from 2021? I say it was 2021. He went from 2021 to 2024 without a 300-yard game. What were we doing? We all know that in the NFL, playing well at the quarterback position is primary, but being consistent so that your team knows what to expect is absolutely a necessity. And Daniel Jones, that's the problem. The highest highs look pretty good, but the lows and the inconsistencies have absolutely been a problem. The Illa says, I wish we could trade for a guy like Dontavian Wicks or get my boy out of that terrible situation in Indy with Adonai Mitchell. Adonai Mitchell was a guy that we both wanted to draft if we would have went quarterback in the first round of the 2024 NFL draft and went with Michael Penix. Now, Malik Neighbors is a beautiful, second place prize there. I ain't no complaints from me about Malik Neighbors, but it'd be nice to pair him with a guy like Adonai Mitchell. Dontavian Wicks is a guy that definitely like a fringe roster guy for the Green Bay Packers at this point, I feel like. He should make the roster, but I would love to bring in a guy like Dontavian Wicks. He would immediately solidify that wide receiver 3 position. So I'm right there with you on that. Let's catch up here. Johnny Mad Dog said, glad he not here no more. Yeah, man, I'm a couple of years too late, right? But yeah, I'm sure everyone is glad that he is not here. There's a few, stragglers out there, I'm sure, still supporting Daniel Jones, but I'm absolutely glad he's not here either. Mr. Waldo said he's shell-shocked. Indy is going to be a 4-win team with him. Yeah, and I think he is in maybe the best situation he's been in his entire career. So no excuse for Daniel Jones this year either. Go out there and win games, man. I'm not rooting for him to lose or nothing like that, but that's been the problem, inconsistencies. Sebastian said, at least we know not to draft any Colts wide receivers in fantasy. Yeah, that's true, man. I made that mistake last year. I'm one that drafted. I do this every year in fantasy. I get so enamored with all the tape that I looked at in the offseason, and I just overdraft rookie wide receivers. I'm just terrible at it. And I think it's because when Jamar Chase first came in the league, I passed up on him and had to watch him go out there and just completely just eat all year long. So I think there's a little bit of, just bias in my takes as far as who I draft in fantasy and whatnot. But I had like 5 rookie wide receivers last year. And then I always end up releasing them before they actually get their feet wet and start to, put pen to paper and have some production on the field. Deilla said that Wicks has the potential. He just has to hold on to the football. He has all the talent in the world. Yeah, man, he showed out, man. There was a time there where I couldn't differentiate who was the wide receiver 1 over there with Christian Watson, Dontavian Wicks, Romeo Dobbs. I feel like there might have been one more guy in the mix as well. But yeah, they got a nice slew of wide receivers over there, especially with drafting Marcus Golden in the first round this year as well. King Duce said, would you blame this regime for Daniel Jones? Like I said, I really can't because think about their plan when they first got here, right? The plan was Tyrod Taylor, 2-year deal. Very similar to what we're seeing with Jameis Winston and Jaxson Dart right now. But it was Tyrod Taylor, 2-year deal. Decline Daniel Jones, 5th-year option. They were probably hoping to move on from him, use Tyrod Taylor as the stopgap bridge quarterback, and then draft their quarterback and start to build the franchise. But when they won too many games in 2022, it kind of changed, their perspective on things. And I think maybe John Mara kind of entered the conversation there. And I won't say forced them to bring back Daniel Jones, but Daniel Jones just never seemed like Brian Daboll's guy. So I can't blame this regime on that. TCCAA says Dart reminded me of Dak Prescott out of college. That's a good take right there because Dak was a bigger mobile quarterback with a little bit of power when he did run the ball. Also had all the ability to be able to make all the throws in the NFL. If Jaxson Dart turns out to be a caliber quarterback of a Dak Prescott, I'm good with that. Yeah, like just win some more playoff games because with Dak Prescott, the biggest struggles have been winning in the playoffs. But in the regular season, I mean, Dak Prescott was, absolutely discussed as an MVP option just a couple of years ago. Deilla said, speaking of fantasy, what's up with the league? Authentic, any spots open? So I was doing a league for all my folks over there on Bleacher Report, and we definitely got about 12 spots filled right now, but maybe we should do one over here too. I'm gonna talk to the Beard about that. Maybe we should do a fantasy show for everybody over here, the family on Authentic and the Beard. Y'all know we do a Saturday show every is it Sundays or Saturdays? We're doing that Sunday morning, actually. Sunday morning show every Sunday at 11 a.m. So maybe we just kind of intertwine that with a fantasy league. Anybody who's interested in the fantasy league, reach out to me. Let me know. If we get enough people, I'll absolutely do it. Let's see. Leave the Race said last year had really good rookie wide receivers for fantasy. Leak, Brian Thomas Jr., Lab McConkey, who I wasn't that high on Lab McConkey because he didn't have a lot of production coming out of Georgia. He only had like 30-some receptions, but man, that dude balled out in his rookie year. Shout out to my dogs like D-Kit, Sal, Monty. All of them were super high on Lab McConkey. I just couldn't see it. Yep, Jalen Reed was the other guy I'm thinking about. Yep, they definitely had another one. Sebastian said, hopefully this year, Dable isn't raging on the sidelines. Jones put him through a lot. Yeah, he did. Absolutely did. Let's see. Are we all caught up? Yeah, we're all caught up on the chat, caught up on the super chats as well. All right, let's go off into Jaxson Dart's numbers here and, just kind of see how Mike Clay was projecting to see how Jaxson Dart would perform in the 2025 NFL season. But these were his projections here. Actually, this is Russell Wilson. Let me go back to Dart here. My bad, y'all. Media assets and go Dart. These are Dart's projections here. 9 games, 1,985 yards, 10 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 39 rushing attempts. I think if Jaxson Dart plays 9 games, he's going to rush the ball more than 39 times. 182 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns, 24 sacks on the year. So I like these numbers if Jaxson Dart plays 9 games on the season. I would up the rushing yards a little bit, and I think I would up the rushing touchdowns a little bit there, and the attempts as well. I just think the rushing numbers are a little bit off. Now, like I said, man, Dart is absolutely ready, in my opinion. It doesn't mean that he still can't improve just a little bit and still develop, but we've seen quarterbacks do that throughout the history of the NFL. They come in, they're a little bit ready. They get thrown to the wolves. They're not as ready as you want them to be, but then they also progress on the field, and they learn a lot on the field. Josh Allen comes to mind when I'm saying that. And you just, we are all excited about that preseason performance, but at the end of the day, you got to take it with a grain of salt. It is the preseason, and Jaxson Dart has been predominantly going up against a ton of backups. But Let's kind of play the over-under here just a little bit. Let's say, I don't even want to say if he plays 9 games. Let's just play the over-under on all 3 categories from a passing standpoint. Are y'all taking the over or the under on the games? For me, I'm taking the under on the games. I think that it's going to be a tough decision for Brian Dable, even if, as one of the homies said earlier, that if in the first 7 games that Russell Wilson can't win 2 to 3 games, I think it's still going to be a tough decision for Brian Dable to put Russell Wilson on the bench. But you know he's going to get pressure from the fan base. If the Giants start off like 1-6 or something like that in the first 7 weeks, the pressure from the fan base is absolutely going to be, it's going to be applied. And I think you're going to have a couple of people that are going to be saying put in Jameis Winston as well. I've been seeing a couple of people that have been saying start Jameis Winston week 1 over Russell Wilson, that he gives you a better chance to, 1, stretch the ball down the field and win games. I don't necessarily agree with that. Not even necessarily. I just don't agree with that. I think that Russell Wilson is going to be the safer play. He's going to turn the ball over a lot less. He's going to be a safer quarterback when it comes to checking down. Russell Wilson over the last 2 seasons in the NFL has the highest check down rate of any quarterback in the entire league. So he is a play it safe type of quarterback, but that's not to say that he won't just air out one of those moon balls and catch a wide receiver down the field as well. But I'm taking the under on the games. I think Russell Wilson is going to start more games than Jaxson Dart. And as far as the yards, I'm taking the under on the yards as well. Being that I don't see Jaxson Dart starting 9 games, I don't see how there's any way that he's going to be knocking on the door of 2,000 yards. Now, let's say if Jaxson Dart, and I don't want to let the cat out the bag, but let's just say Jaxson Dart starts less games than Russell Wilson, I still think there's a chance that he could throw for 10 touchdowns. Let's say it was flipped. Let's say that Jaxson Dart started 8 games and Russell Wilson started 9 games. In 8 games, Jaxson Dart could throw 10 passing touchdowns. I absolutely think that. But do I want to take the over? With all the context that we have here, do I want to take the over on 10 touchdowns? I'm going to say no. I'm going to take the under on the 10 touchdowns simply because this is within the New York Giants offense, and we're rolling out the same exact offense we saw from 2024 minus the quarterback position. There's not a lot of weapons on this offense. You do add Cam Scatterboo, the 4th-round draft pick, to the situation here. But at the same time, just adding him to the scenario, I don't think that that's going to be enough to be able to get a guy like Jaxson Dart over 10. I'm going to take the under on the 10 touchdowns. I'm going to take the under on the yards. I'm going to take the under on the games. I'm going to take the under on the touchdowns as well. Let me tap in with the chat, just see how y'all might be feeling about this one here. Leave the Race says, I think he throws 10 touchdowns in 5 games easily. Y'all, man, Leave the Race. I don't know if you're a young bull or if you're an OG like me, but I notice a lot of my young bulls love that saying, easily. Easily, right? I don't know if it's easily with this New York Giants offense, but I hope you're right. If he could come in and play 5 games, put up 10 touchdowns, that's going to be great for the future and our perspective on Jaxson Dart as the franchise quarterback. Sebastian says, I think Russ will be competent enough this year for them to not pull the plug at the bye. And our bye is at week 14, I believe it is. We are going to go over the schedule before I get y'all up out of here. But, I kind of agree with you on this one, too. I think Russell Wilson is competent enough as well. Word says, would you trade Jameis Winston? I really don't want us to get rid of him. Nope. I think that, and listen, I love the comments from Brandon Brown yesterday saying, hey, we appreciate all the offers, because he talked about they getting offers for Jameis Winston. And he said, we appreciate all the offers, but Jameis Winston is a New York Giant. So I'm right there with him. And I think you can't have, especially at $4 million AAV, I love the plan that they have with Jameis Winston and Jaxson Dart, and I hope that Jameis Winston is still on the roster next year. He said, Leave the Race said, laugh my ass off. I'm joking. That sounds like an OG response now, because, like, I'm telling you, when I'm on social media, I don't know when people are trolling or being sarcastic, because people will say, like, for instance, Josh Allen is better than Lamar Jackson easily. I'm just like, man, I don't get these young bulls, man. But it's good to know that you was joking on that one. Shout out Amari Price. He said, I honestly think Russ will win us games. I do too. I think he's got an opportunity, especially with this defense. If this defense can go out there and show out, put Russell Wilson in, the best possible situation to have good field position. Not saying that Russell Wilson can't just, march down the field and create points. But if the defense can do that and also create some takeaways and some scoring opportunities for the defense, I really think that this team can win some games and surprise us. I'm looking at 6 or 7. If the defense goes out there and surprises me, I think we're looking at maybe 8 or 9 wins. We'll see. The Trash Man said Winston's contract is crazy good value. Absolutely. Johnny Mad Dog said Russ beating Washington week 1. Take that ML. I'm trying to think what he talking about with the ML vibes. That motherfucking L. I feel you on that though, man. I hope so. I'm going into week 1 with a lot of confidence. Y'all know I live in the Washington, D.C. area. My co-host, The Beard, is a Commanders fan, and I need those bragging rights, y'all. I really do need that. So we'll see how it goes. Shout out my dog, Toxic Tom, in the building one time. He said, authentic, love your content, stay safe in D.C., man. Yeah, D.C. is, a bit of a shit show right now with what's going on. And, I did move right outside of the city. Like, I'm right now on the line in the Silver Spring area. So I'm really not in the heart of D.C. that much. I'll go out, occasionally, maybe hang out with some homies. One of my good homies works at a bar out there I've been occasionally popping into and whatnot. But, I appreciate that, man. I definitely appreciate that, fam. Let's see. Ben Ayers says he's taking the over. Rookies can be overly aggressive. Turnovers may be up, too. That's true. That's definitely true. That's definitely true. Word says, let me highlight this one here. Word said, I hope we win. My neighbor is a Washington fan. I want that bragging rights as well. Yeah, man. We kind of dominated and owned the Washington Commanders through the Daniel Jones era for the most part, and whatever backup was playing against them as well. But, last year was that was a bit of a wake-up call for us, getting swept, by the Washington Commanders. Last year was the year we didn't win a single division game, right? Yeah, we didn't win a single division game last year. That's bad news, man. That's just bad news, bro. And now I got to get this super chat from my dog, Door Gunner, one time representing those Washington Commanders. He said, going to start the Giants off right week 1 with the L. Door Gunner, I knew. As soon as I saw your name with the super chat there, I just knew you was going to throw a little bit of shade my way, man. But I'm all good with it, man. You definitely been supporting our channel in a major way. So big salute to you, man. And best of luck to your Washington Commanders this year, as long as it's not against my New York Giants. Hopefully we can handle business week 1. I think that's going to be our best opportunity, actually, to beat you guys, because when we see y'all later on in the season, I think that Jaden Daniels is going to be a little bit more settled in with his new weapons out there in Deebo Samuel and his new offensive lineman on the outside with what's my dog? Lermy Tunsil on the left, Josh Connolly out of Oregon on the right. Y'all made some upgrades. I think a lot of people are sleeping on y'all. I don't necessarily think you guys will be back in the NFC Championship again. Would it surprise me if you were back there? It would not. But I do think that the Washington Commanders are going to improve this year. Just like the New York Giants, you might not see it in the wins column. I think you guys are going to be a better team this year, though. Much more difficult schedule for the entire NFC East this year. And Door Gunner, man, coming in back to back one time with another $2 super chat. He said, I'm flying up from Florida for week 1. I'm excited. That's awesome, man. If I get to make it out to that game, which I think it's about a 50-50 chance right now that I'm going to make it out to that game. I might just pull up for the tailgate and leave and then go do some coverage on Bleacher Report. But if I pull up, man, make sure we stay in contact, man. It would be awesome to get to meet some homies from the chat and get to chop it up, maybe have a couple of brews before that game and, get to say what's up and get to meet each other, man. So big shout out to Door Gunner, man, and salute to you, man. I appreciate you supporting the channel in a major way. And another $2 super chat from the dog, Door Gunner. He says, better have that run defense fixed. I know that's right, man. Brian Robinson rushed for his first 100-yard game against the New York Giants last season. It's looking like he's no longer going to be a Washington Commander this year, but it was pretty puzzling to see how y'all ran the ball against us, literally right through the A-gaps, right where Dexter Lawrence is. But there was a big reason for that. Y'all were double-teaming him the entire game. And, our 3 techs next to him definitely couldn't make, the necessary type of plays to be able to stop the run. So hopefully we've upgraded that department in a major way. And I agree with you, man. We definitely better have that run defense fixed going up against the Washington Commanders in week 1. And granted, you guys are likely not going to have Brian Robinson, but y'all went out there and drafted one of my favorite players from the draft in Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, who, came onto my radar during the Shrine Bowl. And he is one of them dudes. I don't know why he did not get drafted. I know he didn't have, basically zero productivity last season at Arizona because he had that ineligibility issue. But I want to say the one game that he played in, I want to say the carries I won't remember, but I know that he went over 100 yards and had at least 1 touchdown. That dude is a dog, man. And he showed out during the bowl week early on during the Shrine and Senior Bowl performances, man. He was on my radar. He was a guy that if he went undrafted, I thought the Giants should have brought him in. Y'all got 2 of my guys that I wanted the Giants to bring in. Both Ja'Cory's. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt at the running back position and also Ja'Cory Brooks at the wide receiver position who played at Louisville with Tyler Shuck. And definitely was his number 1 target, a guy that could stretch the field and do a lot of the intermediate stuff too. So, yeah, I'm definitely looking at you guys a little bit envious, a little bit jealous for sure. Door Gunner with another $2 super chat, man. Hey, don't be spending your hard-earned $2 over here too much, man. He said better O-line and speed at running back now, and he's speaking about the Washington Commanders, and he's definitely right, man. Appreciate that, brother. I definitely appreciate you supporting the channel, man. Door Gunner been rocking out with us now, I want to say, for about a good 2 to 3 seasons now, man. Salute to you, bro. And DeIlla said don't sleep on Chris Rodriguez either. Yeah, he's a pretty decent back. I don't think he's had, the greatest of success just yet. I think Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt's going to be a running back one coming into the year and sharing the backfield with Austin Eckler is kind of like that third down running back. Oh, and y'all did draft him. Y'all ended up drafting him. So Ja'Cory Brooks was the one that went undrafted, and y'all drafted Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt in the 7th. Yeah, that's a good pickup, man. Great value for you guys. Big shout out Kevin the PRF in the building as well. Oh, TCCAA said he's another Charlie. I want to know who he's comparing Charlie to. That's funny. Toxic Tom said, I love Silver Spring, man. Yeah, Silver Spring's a good vibe. I actually grew up here, all the way throughout like my high school years and late into my 20s and whatnot. And then I moved to D.C., stayed in D.C. for about a decade. And then, man, like post-pandemic, the city was just ridiculous, man. The crime out there in D.C. was getting fucking crazy. Motherfuckers spray painted MS-13 on the side of my house. I was like, man, it's time to get the fuck out of here, man. As soon as I had an opportunity to get out of here and go back to Silver Spring, I was like, yeah, let's go ahead and jump on that. So we did that. But yeah, love DC. Can't front. I love DC. Love Silver Spring though. DC is just, everything's a little bit more compact and all in one area in a 5-mile radius. Silver Spring, everything's a little bit more spread out, but it's a little bit more chill out here for sure. Let's see. Are we all caught up? Word said, I'm not excited about our secondary. That's the most questionable to me. Interior offensive line is where my question marks come. But I do feel you, man. From a depth standpoint, the secondary is a little bit suspect, but more focused on the cornerbacks. Like, Paulson Adebo was the one free agent that I wanted to go out there and get, and we got him. So I am excited about seeing him play. But having like the expectation that he's just going to come in and be this dominant cornerback one, like the guy I was talking to earlier today, comparing Paulson Adebo to fucking Jalen Ramsey. What are we doing here? I just hope that he can come out there, get back off the injury, and get back to the performance of where he was playing at before the injury. He's more than capable. Bringing in Javon Holland is another one of those type of situations as well. You need Javon Holland to get back to his, rookie ways and his sophomore ways when he first got in the league. Ever since he had that injury at MetLife, on the turf at MetLife, where he sprained both of his MCLs, I believe it was, he really has not been that same player. And 2024 was one of his worst seasons. So, I'm not saying that he's going to continue on the decline that we saw from 2024, but, it is something that I am monitoring going into this year. I want Javon Holland to have a incredible year, get back into that top 10 conversation as far as safeties go. And same thing goes for Paulson Adebo. Paulson Adebo is 4th in interceptions in the last 2 seasons, right? And he's also 1st in it's not PBUs, but it's just like passes defensed. He's 1st in the NFL over the last 2 seasons. And we're talking about a guy that only played 7 games in all of 2024. So, yeah, man, I'm looking forward to seeing how the secondary pans out as well. It's something to keep our eyes on for real. D-Kid said, let me see. Is there another one up? D-Kid said, name me a team this year where a week 1 win would mean more to that team than the New York Giants. I'd have to go look at every team's week 1 matchup, but yeah, man, that the Giants need a week 1 win badly, man. Every team in the NFC East right now is looking at it that way. They want wins early on, and for the Giants, you're right. This is like definitely a meaningful week 1. It's on the road. It's against a divisional opponent. It's a chance to go up 1-0 in the division early on and then be going into Dallas the following week if we can win that game against Washington with the chance to go up two games in the NFC East with 2 wins in the division. Yeah, D-Kid, you definitely dropping some gems right now, bro. I'm definitely right there with you on that. Sebastian says he still has shaky confidence in Deonte Banks. Rightfully so, man. Deonte Banks, very capable. Y'all know I'm a Maryland Terp all the way through and through. Shoot for their content team. Big shout out to my Terps, man. I don't think nobody does it better than us. Like, I see what the New York Giants content creation team is putting out. Go take a look at the Maryland Terps Instagram and look at some of the stuff that we're creating over there. Nobody does it better than us. I promise you. Ain't nobody doing it better than us. I really want to suggest to the New York Giants that they need to go out there and just hire all of us from Maryland and let us tackle what's going on as far as content goes with the New York Giants, but I ain't here to step on nobody's toes. Big shout out to my dog, too, Matt, that shoots photography for the New York Giants. I think he does an incredible job. But I am still shaky about Deonte Banks as well. Last year, not a lot of good results, man. And, there's recency bias there, right? Deonte Banks came in underneath Wink Martindale and looked like he was headed, towards the trajectory of being a CB1. And lately has definitely, shaken up our confidence a little bit here, as Sebastian says. So I'm right there with you on that, man. D-Kid says they don't have their quarterback yet. The Saints, I think that Tyler Shuck is the quarterback. Not to say that Spencer Rattler's not capable to be the starter, but from what I saw from Tyler Shuck in that first preseason game, outside of that interception, which, you want to clean that stuff up. But rookies are going to throw picks. The kid looked real decisive, man. He looked real sharp. And I know a lot of people are looking at him and just kind of trying to dismiss him. I see that all over my Twitter feed. But I thought Tyler Shuck, and I comped his games. They're on the channel if you want to go check them out. I thought he put together a pretty good performance for his first week. And I think he should be the starter. Spencer Rattler, I think, playing with the backups is definitely hurting his chances of being the starter. But, just a lot to be desired from Spencer Rattler. And it's hard to evaluate him, too, because he's got a ton of pressure in his face when he's going out there with that second team and third team offensive line with the Saints. But maybe a week one win to the Saints could mean a lot as well. I think that they're one of those teams as well. And Gregory said Dallas needs a week one win as well. I mean, beating the Philadelphia Eagles, I think they open up the season Thursday night, right, in front of the entire nation. If they could go out there and beat the Eagles, that's going to mean a ton. Yeah, I agree with you on that. DeIlla said Dallas beating Philly would be big for them. Probably not going to happen. Shout out my dog DeIlla. That's what's up, man. Hyphen said maybe the Bengals, the Cowboys, or the Panthers. Yeah, the Panthers need a win as well. That's very true. Hoping that Bryce Young can, build upon the success that he had late in the year last year as well. I think that's a good candidate as well. Let's see what else we got. Toxic Tom said, I'm biased, but that to me is a win every team wants. Beating the team, celebrating their new banner. Yeah, that's true. That's definitely true. TCCAA said, who's the Maryland quarterback now? Man, we got that freshman boy right now. And I was upset on Saturday. We filmed our first scrimmage, and they didn't play him. I was like, damn, I really wanted to see him. But Malik Washington is the new starter for the Maryland Terps. And it looks like he's going to start. They haven't quite declared him the starter, but from everything that I've seen from Coach Loxley thus far, they're pampering him and treating him like the starter. He was a top 10 recruit, 4-star recruit. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do this year. Last year was Billy Edwards, and I like Billy Edwards. Billy Edwards is a gamer, man, not necessarily from a skill set standpoint, one of the guys who has elite talent, but he was a gamer. But the costly turnovers definitely hurt us last year. And, the Maryland Terps finished under 500, so looking forward to seeing Malik Washington. We lost a lot of players this year, man. A lot of our top dogs, man. Jordan Phillips, a couple other guys on the defensive side of the ball as well. Ty Felton at wide receiver, Caden Prather, wide receiver. Yeah, we lost a lot of talent. So expectations aren't as high this year, but we'll see. Maybe Malik Washington can bring some victories to the Terps this year. We'll see. E. Banks is in the building, says, can't wait to see Hyatt score his first touchdown in the regular season. We've been waiting. We've been waiting, bro. His only touchdown came in the preseason with Tyrod Taylor at the quarterback position. And, the scarier part about it is that Jalen Hyatt has only had one red zone attempt in his entire career. So I'm looking forward to that too, man. I hope we can see that as well. What else we got? I see Kill P is in the building. He said the Saints and the Colts about to be ass water this year. You never know. I got to take a look at the Colts and Saints schedules too. Shout out Call It a Comeback 83. I hope that 83 represents the year you was born, representing for my dogs one time, man. I'm a 1983 baby as well. He says, hopefully Dallas will be tired and beaten coming into the Giants game. Yeah, they will be a little bit well-rested, playing on Thursday. But, you hope the Philadelphia Eagles beat them up a little bit. And, they give us a better opportunity for us to go out there and possibly, have a chance to beat the Dallas Cowboys in week 2. I'm looking forward to that as well. Let me get this off the screen. Let me get this back on the screen. And you know what? Let's go right to it. So the other thing I wanted to talk about here, And big shout out to all of y'all, man. I appreciate all y'all pulling up today and rocking out with us today on this giant overreaction, man. A lot of people in the building. We've been building a, what I like to call our small corner of the internet over here called Authentic in the Beard. And if you want to join that corner of the internet, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Shout out to the family that's been rocking with us throughout the last couple of years and helping us build this community up, man. That's really based upon value and based upon honesty, man. That's where we at. We're trying to give y'all the rawest, the most realest New York Giants content that there is on the internet and trying to fill a void that is not there. Like when I see people doing great things in the New York Giants community, my goal is to not copy and be redundant and look at their formulas as some kind of a model as what I should do. I try to bring value in our own particular way, and I hope that you guys are seeing that value here on Authentic in the Beard. So big salute to all of y'all for rocking out with us. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about here is, what is the earliest y'all think that Jaxson Dart has an opportunity to start for the New York Giants? And I want to pull up the schedule here for you guys so y'all can look at it as well and just see which game you're viewing as likely the earliest game for Jaxson Dart to get on the field. I wanted to keep the theme here with Jaxson Dart and people saying that Jaxson Dart deserves to start. Now, you got the Cowboys and the Commanders in the first 2 weeks there on the road, division rivals. I don't think it's going to happen at any point there or the next couple of weeks against the Chiefs and against the Chargers. But I think that an opportunity presents itself somewhere around this game against the Broncos, maybe in week 7, possibly maybe after the 2 games against the Philadelphia Eagles when you're going up against the San Francisco 49ers in week 9. Now, the Thursday night game against the Philadelphia Eagles is in week 6, and you would have an opportunity of a longer week to possibly, implement Jaxson Dart there going up against the Broncos. But I do think that that would be a little bit too early, that just after 6 games, you send Russell Wilson packing. So for me, I'm going to say the earliest we'll see Jaxson Dart is week 9. And if that's the case, that's exactly where ESPN's Mike Clay has projected that Jaxson Dart will take over, because he had Jaxson Dart playing 9 games and he had Russell Wilson playing 8. And I think that would be a really good way to start off Jaxson Dart's career, going up against a 49ers team that lost a ton of talent in free agency, and I think it would be an interesting matchup against their defense. The Chicago Bears, I look at that as a winnable game on the New York Giants schedule. I mean, they have made some upgrades. That defense definitely has a ton of talent on it. Offensively, they got a ton of talent at wide receiver with DJ Moore out there and Romo Dunze as well. They brought in a couple of other guys as well. So I think that'll be a tough matchup, but I look at it as a winnable game. Same thing goes with the Green Bay Packers. They're a good team, very well-coached team as well under Matt LaFleur. But I still look at that as a game that the New York Giants could possibly win. And that gives you 3 games for Jaxson Dart to really get his feet wet to then go up against, a couple of other tough teams late down the schedule. But the back half of the schedule is much easier. Like I look at the 49ers, the Bears, the Packers, the Patriots, the Vikings, the Raiders, and the Cowboys. I mean, that's 7 games in the back half of the schedule that I look at as not games that we're going to win, but I look at them as winnable games for the New York Giants. So I do think the earliest for me would be to prep him. You could look at week 7 as possibly, the earliest, but I think week 9 would make more sense. And we're talking about a situation here if Russell Wilson is struggling, right? I think that's the only way that we're going to see Jaxson Dart get on the field early, right? But at the end of the day, if it all goes according to schedule, then Russell Wilson is going to go out there and win games, and we won't have to worry about this. And I see Toxic Tom, he makes a good point here. He says, let the kids start or let the kids sit for the year, learn from 2 well-traveled, respected veterans in the NFL, especially coming from a Lane Kiffin offense. And listen, I know the narrative and the rhetoric is that quarterbacks that play in Lane Kiffin's offense aren't ready for the NFL. And I just totally disagree with that. Like, listen, when you look at Lane Kiffin's offense and you compare it to what he was doing or what was being done in Colorado underneath Pat Shurmur, I think that there are more things in the Lane Kiffin system that will yield better results in the NFL than what we saw from Shedeur Sanders, with Colorado underneath Pat Shurmur. But at the end of the day, rookie quarterbacks aren't going to come in and be all the way ready. But I think people are looking at Lane Kiffin, the old Lane Kiffin, because Lane Kiffin was a guy that was late to come around the corner as far as adapting to the newer nuances that are implemented in collegiate offenses. But what we saw last year, there was a lot of stuff to be desired that Lane Kiffin did implement in that offense that will translate to the NFL. And look, Jaxson Dart ran a ton of RPO over there, right? That offense underneath Lane Kiffin was RPO based. What did we see from Daniel Jones in 2022 underneath Brian Dable and Mike Kafka? A ton of RPO. So I'm not saying we're going to run a predominantly RPO ran offense, but those are things that will translate immediately to what Brian Dable and Mike Kafka do. So I agree with you when you say let the kids sit. But at the end of the day, if the New York Giants 2025 season starts spiraling a little bit out of control and we start losing games, I think we'd be doing ourselves a disservice to not allow Jaxson Dart to get some meaningful reps at some point this year. Now, if we're still in the mix, by all means, keep Russell Wilson out there. Or if Russell Wilson goes down with an injury, and let's say the New York Giants are sitting at somewhere around 500, maybe a winning record, you have to contemplate bringing in Jameis Winston as the guy to continue on for the season. So I like what you're saying with let the kids sit. But at the end of the day, I don't think none of that has to do with because of a Lane Kiffin offense. People have been comparing Jaxson Dart to Matt Corral and other. I just think that that's just doing yourself a disservice. Not you in particular, Tom, but the people that have been doing that, right? Because Jaxson Dart is not Matt Corral. They're different quarterbacks. They play the game totally different. Jaxson Dart plays the game with much more confidence, much more poise, much more aggressiveness and grittiness, and he's a better runner. Those are things that I always will say, that when your quarterback is developing, if he has that extra skill set to be a dynamic runner and a dual threat quarterback from that position, then you can have him learn on the job while you implement a few more designed quarterback runs. We saw it with Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts came out in his first year as a starter with absolutely nothing on that offense from a weapon standpoint. I think it was Miles Sanders that might have been the running back that first year he took over. And then from a wide receiver standpoint, it was Travis Fulgham and it was Greg Ward, and they had drafted Devonta Smith. His rookie, it was Devonta Smith as a rookie, and that was in 2021, I believe it was, when he took over. But because he had that extra skill set to be able to run the ball, they built an offense around him that was built around his strengths. I still think you could do that with Jaxson Dart. And when you see the way that Jaxson Dart has been running his offense in the preseason versus the way that Russell Wilson has been running his offense in the preseason, they are very different. Like, Jaxson Dart came out there against the Jets and ran all up tempo. We have not seen that from Russell Wilson in the preseason just yet. We have seen a clean, precise, get out of the huddle and get to the line fast type of offense, but we have not seen calling the plays at the line like we saw from Jaxson Dart. Let me see. D. Kit says, there were some things Matt Corral did well, a few, that's it. And I do agree. Yeah, and I'm trying to think where Matt Corral ended up getting drafted as far as what round. Was he a fourth rounder? Let me look that up real quick. I think Matt Corral was drafted in the fourth round. Maybe the third round was the earliest. Let me take a look here. He was drafted in the third round, 94th overall. And really didn't get a lot of opportunity with the Carolina Panthers either. And I'm trying to think, was Matt Corral the dude that dealt with a couple of mental, I want to say he had like a couple of mental health issues going on or something like that. I think that was Matt Corral. Might have been another quarterback. I could be wrong on that. But yeah, I just think they're different quarterbacks. And you can't always just look at the system and go, well, those guys came out of that system. They're not going to do well. People used to say that about Ohio State, right? Like, oh, Ohio State quarterbacks, this, that, and the third, man. You got to just judge each prospect for what they are and just put them in their own bubble and in their own vacuum. Good point by D-Kit, though. I thought Matt Corral did some things well, too, but he was definitely a guy at that time that I was like, I don't think I would spend a draft pick on him. Let's see. I think we got a couple of other super chats that came into the building here. Oh, I missed this one from Door Gunner on purpose. Shout out Door Gunner with the $5 super chat. He said, you can't spell Wilson without an L. You can't spell Russell without two of them, too, man. God damn it, I hate this. He said, LOL, I do think the New York Giants are in a much better spot. Sucks for them with the schedule at the start of the season. Absolutely does, man. The schedule is treacherous, and people are trying to ignore that, but there's no way I can ignore the productivity that teams brought out last season and that they will bring into the next season with that same type of energy. So, you're looking at the Philadelphia Eagles, just within our division, look at the teams in our division. Dallas Cowboys getting Dak Prescott back, and they just added George Pickens to the whole entire offensive scenario. I'm not looking forward towards playing that. You look at the Washington Commanders. They were just in the NFC Championship with the Philadelphia Eagles, who I might add are in our division as well. And all the Commanders did was upgrade. Went out there and got Lermy Tunsil, Debo Samuel, got a couple of good players in the draft, and Josh Connerly in the first round. They went out there and drafted Jalen Lane out of Virginia, I believe it is. It's Virginia or Virginia Tech. I might be wrong on that. In the third round, they're bringing in talent. You got a bunch of OGs coming back in Zach Ertz, who was maybe the best tight end in the entire division last year. Definitely the best red zone threat from the tight end position in the entire division last year. So it's going to be tough, man. You look at some of those other teams like the Chiefs, perennially, just perennial contenders throughout the entire Patrick Mahomes tenure. You look at the Chargers since Harbaugh got there, they're definitely an intimidating team. The Denver Broncos coming off of, 10 wins a season ago. It's going to be tough, man. It's going to be tough. It's absolutely going to be tough. So, you can't spell L. You can't spell Russell Wilson without L's. You're right about that, bro. You're definitely right about that. I really wish I would have just missed this one and ignored this one, but I feel you, bro. I definitely feel you. Shout out Off Broadway 718. He says, I think Dart comes in week 10 due to the cry of the fans and the Giants record being like 2-7 or 3-6, man. Big shout out to Off Broadway for supporting the channel with that $10 super chat. Can't disagree with this, man. It would not surprise me if the Giants were sitting at 2-7 or 3-6. Let's kind of go through this real quick. Let's say we could beat the Commanders week 1. If we beat the Commanders week 1, to be a little realistic, I'll say we lose week 2. Week 3, looking at a loss against the Chiefs. I'm going to say a loss against the Chargers. Let's say a win against the Saints. Loss against the Eagles. At best, 3 wins. You're right. I could give us a win against the Browns. I think the Eagles are going to sweep us this year. Yeah, we'll say at best 4 wins by the time we get to that 49ers game. Yeah. Bears, maybe. 2-7, 3-6 don't sound that egregious. So I'm right there with you on that. I like that. Shout out my dog. Talking Eco is in the building, man. One of our biggest supporters over here on the channel. He says, I love Russ, but the quick game is not his best. He sometimes holds on to the ball, and with his declining athleticism, it can lead to sacks. I think it depends on how the season goes. Now, I do think that Russell Wilson's athleticism is not quite where it was when he was a rookie, but I do think that he still has a little bit of mobility in his bag. I did post a compilation to the channel just showing you a lot of mobile plays from Russell Wilson's 2024 campaign. If you want, go check that out. It'll kind of give you a little bit of an example of how he's still moving and grooving as far as mobility goes, buying time and being able to make throws down the field. I do agree with you on the quick game, but especially in between the hashes, in the center of the field, that's where Russell Wilson has struggled a good bit. But I think he has the ability to be able to run a nice West Coast system and be able to get the ball out of his hands fast, much more decisive and concise than Daniel Jones was, which in return I think will make this offensive line look a lot better as well. But we shall see, man. And I still had that one highlighted. I did want to highlight your super chat there. But we will see. I definitely think that it's something to keep our eyes on. And we're seeing 2 quarterbacks that I think – we're seeing 3 quarterbacks that I think can run the quick game better than we saw from the previous quarterbacks that were on the roster as well. I didn't think that Tyrod Taylor was all that great at quick game. Also was a little bit inaccurate. Like when you saw Tyrod, have inaccuracies on display, a lot of it was during the quick game, just missing a little high at times. But I think Russ, Jameis, Jaxson Dart, both should be able to clean that up a little bit. We'll see, though. We'll see. I hope Russell Wilson has a resurgence to his career because it will just look that much better for the New York Giants in 2025. And I want to win some games. Let's see. Call it a comeback 83 said, no, there isn't, LOL. Unless you're reaching to the last name, reach more. I feel you, man. I'm right there with you, man. No, let's avoid them L's for 2025. But I do think that they are inevitable going into the season. The Giants still got a lot of work to do. And DeIlla is telling me that Jalen Lane was Virginia Tech. I don't know why I always get them confused because of Daquan Felton on our roster being out of Virginia Tech as well. And it's just all confusing for me. Door Gunner said, Russell Wilson, 3 L's and 1 W. Yo, that's a bar, though. I got to give you that, dog. I got to give you that. That's a bar. That's definitely a bar, bro. I want to hate on that, but I got to give you props on that. That's witty right there. Yeah, Hyphen said it was Tech. Door Gunner said we upgraded our Our D. Allen was super overrated and Fowler couldn't stop the run. Yeah, that's true. It's definitely true. Fowler went back to the Dallas Cowboys. Aziki, is that how you say that? Aziki said Allen isn't overrated. Allen isn't overrated. He got paid. I don't know what the contract is. I do think in the last couple of years, Jonathan Allen was a little bit overrated. And there's been a lot of my thoughts have been angled at the Washington Commanders having 4 defensive linemen that were all drafted in the first round, because now the New York Giants are in that same boat. The Giants have 4 defensive linemen that were all drafted in the first round. The Commanders didn't really get a lot out of that situation. It was Chase Young, Montez Sweat, Jonathan Allen, and Deron Payne. And they did make the playoffs 1 year with them, which was in 2020, but they did it with a 7-9 record. But I do have not necessarily concerns, but when you see history go a certain way, when a team approaches things a certain way by bringing in 4 first-round defensive linemen, it just makes you think a little bit. And De'Illa actually is the one that got me really thinking about this when he said it in one of his videos. He was like, De'Illa said that just because you have one great defensive lineman out of the lineup in Dexter Lawrence, that shouldn't stop you from having your other 3 first-round picks get after the quarterback. Now, we did see Abdul Carter come in against the Buffalo Bills and have some success there. He had 3 pass rush reps, and he had 3 pressures. But then when we saw him go up against the Jets, it was a little bit of a different story there. And the New York Giants had 0 sacks against the Jets. I think that our backups had a couple of sacks against the Buffalo Bills, though I think we did end up having 2 sacks in that game. But all in all, when you look at our starters, it is the preseason, but they have not gotten after the quarterback just yet. They have not put the quarterback on his back yet. And it's just something to pay attention to. But De'Illa, that video that he put out, it was a really good video. And just had me thinking, like, man, 4 first-rounders up front. You got Dexter Lawrence, first-rounder. Brian Burns, first-rounder. Kayvon Thibodeau, first-rounder. And now Abdul Carter, first-rounder. We need some fucking results now. We definitely need some results now. Let's see. Toxic Tom said, so if y'all are seeing another bad year, what are you wanting to see in order for the front office head coach to keep their jobs? I'm not even thinking about that this year, to be honest. I think that Brian Dable and Joe Shane are safe because John Mara allowed them to go get their quarterback. And I just think that the way that the past few regimes, have been fired after just a few seasons, I think that John Mara has that lingering in the back of his mind. And I just don't think he has the guts to go out there and fire these guys if they have a bad season this year. So I think they're safe. I think they're pretty safe. Kevin the PRF said, and look at how that worked out for us. He's talking about the Commanders. I know. This is a bit of a different situation, but we shall see. Hyphen Wade said, I also think that scheme they had did not really benefit all involved, or am I tripping? Let me think about the coaches that they had over there. So Ron Rivera was the head coach throughout that whole time, and Jack Del Rio was the defensive coordinator for the majority of that time. I'm trying to think, I know they fired Jack Del Rio in Ron Rivera's last year, and Ron Rivera ended up taking over for the defense, and they actually looked worse under Ron Rivera. They ran a 4-3, which is definitely different from the way we run our defense. I don't know, man. That those teams were kind of built on the defense. Offensively they weren't all that great. I mean, it was just Terry McLaurin. It was Alex Smith for a while. It was Dwayne Haskins for a while. It was Case Keenum for a while. It was Taylor Heineke for a while. God damn, they went through a lot of quarterbacks. This is what I'll say about it. If them getting those 4 first rounders up front allowed them to go out there and get their quarterback and then finally have the success that they have now, if that means that the New York Giants are headed in the right direction, I'm good with it. I'll be okay with it. But nonetheless, definitely something to think about. And that was that? Oh, no, that one was highlight. I thought it was a super chat. We got another super chat from Door Gunner. Big shout out to Door Gunner, man, supporting today's edition of the Giant Overreaction. I appreciate it, my dog, with the $5 super chat. He said, Commanders go quick pass game, run heavy, and spread the Giants out. That should neutralize the New York Giants pass rush. That will be the plan. I got to sit in on a pretty much like a coach's breakdown of the offense with the Washington Commanders last season. Big shout out to Chris Peace, who blessed me with the tickets to go see it. And I got to see you guys, wide receivers coach. What's my dog's name? Ingram. Is it Bobby Ingram? I know his last name's Ingram. and Daryl Tapp, the defensive line coach. And they talked about it then. They were like, listen, we're coming out Jaden Daniels' rookie year. We're going to be running up-tempo, quick pass game. Expect us to be calling plays at the line. And, man, did that work out for you guys in 2024. So that's a fact, man. And we're going to have to try to find a way to get after the quarterback. I think that's going to be, one hand wash the other type of situation with the secondary, right? Secondary is going to have to cover on the back end, but also up front on that defensive line, you're going to have to get after the quarterback. And hopefully with the upgrades we made in the secondary, we can find a way to, nullify your pass attack and then find a way for you guys to kind of avoid the quick game and force Jaden Daniels into situations where he has to hold the ball longer. So we shall see. We shall see. Bookend Tackle says, authentic putting in time. Yeah, man, like, this shit just, like, flies by, bro. Like, when we talking ball over here, like, I feel like I've been up here for 40 minutes and we've been up here for 2 hours. So it just flies by. And I know that kind of hurts the replay value of some of these streams because there are some people that would just see that timestamp on the replay and go, 2 hours, man, I'm not checking that shit out. I'm like that sometimes on certain people's content. So big shout out to y'all for, the day ones who've been here since the beginning of the stream. Shout out to y'all for rocking out. But yeah, it's nothing, bro. It's absolutely nothing for me. But we are going to round this one out here. Let's see. Deilla said, I just look back at what we had in Mike, Tuck, JPP, OC, and these guys just don't seem to be in that same stratosphere. Those were prototypical defensive ends. Give me a true defensive end over a tweener edge all day long. Now, I'm happy to have Abdul Carter on the roster here, and I just think it's all about where you utilize him and how you utilize him, right? I'm not saying he cannot go out there and play the 3-tech. I know a lot of people looked at the giant overreaction I posted on Twitter and were like, oh, man, here we go, authentic, talking about negative shit and all that. I guess they just don't understand the concept of this show. But again, I always tell y'all, I try to bring concepts to the table that split the room, right? And when Deilla started talking about this, I was like, man, that is such an intriguing topic. And then we got to see it against the Jets. We got to see a tight end chip Abdul Carter and flatten him out, put him right on his back. We got to see the first 3rd and 8 of the game that the New York Jets went out there and ran the ball right at Abdul Carter. And I know, Deilla, you saw that one dude trying to make a case for like, oh, he held his gap contained and all this shit. And I'm like, bro, on 3rd and 8, there's no reason that a team should even be fucking running the ball, right? And the only reason why they did that is because of the light personnel. Deilla was the first one that said, at 250 pounds, it's going to be hard for a guy like Abdul Carter to play that 3-tech position on this defense. And I was intrigued by, we're moving him around, using him as a chess piece. That's amazing. But at the end of the day, man, that's why we drafted Darius Alexander. He's got to be that guy that's going to be next to Dexter Lawrence and be able to be out there on downs that are like a 3rd and 7, a 3rd and 8, that are kind of those tweener downs, right? Like where a team could possibly see a lighter package and go out there and run the ball. So I totally agree with, what Deilla has been putting down here about lighter defensive lineman. That's not to take away anything from Abdul Carter. I mean, he is definitely a specimen and an incredible talent. I'm glad to have him on this roster. At pick 3, he is who I wanted to draft, especially with the way that the draft panned out. So, I think it's something we should monitor. It's not something that we should overreact to right now. It's definitely something that we should monitor for sure, though. Off Broadway said, Deilla, true that. Yeah, man. And Bookend says, it's physics. Pounds matter. That's a fact, man. That's a fact, bro. That's definitely a fact. MK5VW said, what's your opinion on Carter's response? I liked it. He said that's the last time that's going to happen. And listen, it's the perfect time for that to happen, right? You don't want that to happen in the middle of the season. You want that to happen in preseason, have that consciously be in his mind, and have him thinking about that now. Now, when you line up and you see a tight end on your outside shoulder, you're not just going to ignore him and get chipped and get flattened out. It's going to be something that he's conscious of and he'll learn from. So I'm excited that it happened in the preseason. Darnell D said, damn, authentic, just going to skip over my super chat. LOL, let me go back and look. Let me see if I must have missed it, yo. Let's see. Darnell. Do we got one from Darnell? My bad, dog. My bad. Let me see. I'm not seeing it, Darnell. Yeah, I'm not seeing it, bro. Oh, here you go. I'm tripping. Maybe it was because it was the same price as Door Gunner. I forgot about it. My bad, dog. Hey, salute to my dog, Darnell, one time. Darnell is in the building, man. Y'all know what it is with the $5 super chat. He said, salute, authentic. And he called me the GOAT. How I'm skipping over super chats is calling me the GOAT, bro. I appreciate that. He said, glad to see you back on YouTube. What's your official record prediction for the season? Now, we haven't done the official one over here on YouTube, right? But I don't mind telling y'all how I'm feeling about things right now. I think the Giants are going to win 6 games. That's how I see it. I think it's going to be 6 games. 7 would not surprise me. And if Russell Wilson can play to a higher level than we've seen him play in the last couple of years, and this defense can go out there and really ball out, it wouldn't shock me if the Giants won 9 games this year. But it's a tough schedule. And, momentum really means a lot. Like, last season I projected the Giants to win 5 games, and they won 3 games. And I really think that the 2024 New York Giants were not a 3-win team. I know Bill Parcells, everybody like to hang their hat on that quote, like, you are what your record says you are, whatever the fuck he said, right? But I thought the New York Giants momentum killed them in 2024. Like, you get on a roll like that where you're dealing with injuries and you lose 10 straight games, you almost forget how to win. Like, I've been on teams like that. Like, my high school team and my Pee Wee team when I was a young kid, both of those teams before we got there were absolute garbage. Like, my high school team had lost for like 40 straight years or something like that. And then when we finally got there, I was on JV. The varsity team ended up going to the playoffs that year. And we ended up winning like 8 games that year. It was like the first time in 40 fucking years or something crazy like that, right? Had the state rusher in Maryland and all that. In Pee Wee, same thing. I remember my first year when we got there, bro, we lost so many games. It was like, you don't know how to win. You start losing so many games in a row, you just forget how to win. And I think the Giants were, the victim of that in 2024. I look at them as more of a 6-win team. That Saints game, we should have won that game. Maybe even that Dallas Cowboys game, we had a shot to win that game, right? Maybe even the Cincinnati Bengals game, could have possibly won that game. There were just so many games that were close last year that the Giants just couldn't find a way to finish out late in those games. And the quarterback had a lot to do with that. But I still think that they were about a 6-win team, if I'm just judging it kind of like theoretically, right? This year's team is a much better team, and I look at them as a 6-win team again. They are a much better team defensively, though. We just need those moves that we made in the free agency and the moves that we made in the draft. We need those moves to just pan out. We need those guys to go out there and play to the level that we know they are capable of. But if Javon Holland can't get back to his true form, if Paulson Adebo can't get back to his true form, if Kayvon Thibodeau can't take that leap, if Brian Burns is dealing with injuries again, if Dexter Lawrence is dealing with injuries again, if Andrew Thomas can't stay healthy, it's not going to surprise me if this team falls flat. But I'm looking at it as about a 6-win team right now. I think that's like the floor for me. The floor is probably 5 wins. The ceiling is probably 9 wins. I was watching Brett Coleman and his co-host EJ. They do a thing where they do like a breakdown of every team going into the year. And they did one last year, and they had the floor at 5 wins and the ceiling at 9 wins. And this year they didn't predict the floor or the ceiling, and it kind of bothered me. I was like, man, I like that part of it. Like, predict the floor and predict the ceiling, But I do recommend you guys go check out that video that they just released. The title is something interesting about like a team that can win so many games with the score 6-3 or something like that. But just check out Bootleg Football. And I want to say it's their latest video. Go check it out. It's definitely a good watch, man. And I got to watch the whole thing yesterday. I love the kind of content that Brett Coleman is doing. I honestly think that Brett Coleman is the only creator in the space. Let me not just say the only. He's the only one that I'm familiar with, right? That's in the same lane as what I am in. Like, cinematography meets, assessing football. Like, that's honestly what I'm trying to get into, is like documentary type footage meeting the analytics and the assessing of a football team. And Brett Coleman is somebody that does that. He had some clips, man, that he had put out when he was at the Senior Bowl. They gave him access to getting on the field, and he got to shoot things with his, I think he shoots on a Sony A7S. The footage was absolutely amazing. And that's kind of the stuff that I'm trying to get into. Like, shooting for Maryland, we get the opportunity to be able to like not just like film a game from a wide perspective. We get to be able to get into our cinematography bag. And Brett Coleman is doing a good job of that. I definitely recommend you guys go check him out, man. It's some great content that him and EJ are putting out over there. Let's see. We got another one from Door Gunner. Door Gunner said the Commanders go quick pass game, run heavy. Okay, we did get that one already. I think he sent in another one, though. He said, NYG secondary makes me want Italian. Baked ziti. Damn, dog, you just dropping these bars on us, bro, like this is a battle rap or something, man. You really coming for us today, Door Gunner. I appreciate you supporting the channel, but we might have to raise the floor of these super chats because you just throwing these $2 at us like a stripper right now. I don't know how I'm feeling right now, bro. I hope we take care of y'all on week 1, man. It's definitely going to be a vibe as we lead up to the season here. And I definitely recommend you guys check us out as we start to do some of our breakdowns. And most importantly, our week 1 prediction for, who we think is going to win that game, because the Beard representing the Commanders, I'm representing the New York Giants. It really can't get no better for a week one preview over here on Authentic and the Beard. But that's the schedule, man. Every time I look at the schedule, it feels a little bit less difficult. That back half, man, not a lot of teams I'm really worried about after week 8. Lions, worried about them. That's it. All them other teams, man, you never know, man. Let them New York Giants go out here and sneak into 9 wins. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be amazing. Kevin the PRF says you could win money in Vegas betting Thomas plays 17 games. That's facts right there. Hyphen Wade said Authentic. Their base complained about that prediction section. They ain't say it too much, but you can tell. That's very true. That's very true. Deilla said, you know what I wonder about those close games, though? Were teams taking their foot off the gas because they flat out just didn't respect our offense? Absolutely the case in some of those games. Let me tell you one that I hear a lot of New York Giants fans say this, and I'll be like, you're just wrong on that. They be like, oh, we played the Commanders close in both games. Both games were a one-score game. That second game was a one-score game. The Washington Commanders kneeled the ball out in the red zone. They controlled that game, man. First game, I'll give you, all right? We caught Jaden Daniels slipping in week 2, went out there. Malik Neighbors was putting on a damn show, had to drop on 4th down, right? We could have and maybe should have beat them. But this is a valid point from Deilla right here. Like, some of those games, teams are taking their foot off the gas, for sure. When you got a 2-score lead in the 4th quarter, Giants score 1 late, whatever. We'll run the clock out, and, it'll look a certain way on the scoreboard, but at the end of the day, they were in control of those games. So I'm always one that looks at one-score games with a grain of salt, because, you can have a team like the New York Giants underneath Joe Judge. I think they lost 7 one-score games. Same thing goes for the Giants under Joe Shane in 2020. Was that 2023 or 2024? One of those years he used that as an excuse. Oh, we had this many one-score games. I think it was 2024. And, but then you look at the Minnesota Vikings, who won 11 one-score games in 2022 and made the playoffs, and then we just straight up bounced them in the first round. So one-score games is like, I'd prefer to just blow teams out, obviously, right? But one-score games, that's where coaches are going to earn their money, is down the stretch. Can you find a way to, put your team over the top? But good point, Dilla. Very good point. Door Gunner, man, we're feasting. We're feasting right now. Door Gunner bringing in that $5 super chat one time. He said Shane and Dable can hire you to document their Cabo vacation over Thanksgiving. I appreciate you, man. Thank you for supporting the channel, Door Gunner. You are throwing bars at us right now. You definitely throwing bars at us. No Mets, no Nets, no Jets says the Giants are starting 2-0. I hope you're correct on that, bro. I really do. You're off Broadway. Jeebus. I might steal that from you. I like that. Kevin the PRF said, I know you think Authentic that Shane and Dable are safe, but I think a 5-win season with the problems you mentioned may make Mara rethink it. Could be the case. I think barring a catastrophe, both of them will be back. Joe Shane is extremely safe. I don't think there's any way Joe Shane gets fired. And look at what he's doing. He's given Brian Dable the groceries right now. And the groceries are fresh, man. Not offensively so much, but defensively, man, we got some dogs. And man, Shane Bowen, you better get it together this year. Leave the Race said, excuse me. New York, he says, New York Giants mic'd up with Dable. You can tell he loves Dart. Did that one just come out? I got to see that if that's the case, man. You can definitely tell that Brian Dable loves him some Jaxson Dart. Deilla says, I got to go. Daughter has back to school night. Take it easy, Authentic, and everybody in the chat, man. Yeah, this is good parenting right here. And I'm going to take a quote from one of my dogs. Y'all know we have the quote at the end of the show where we always talk about raising the bar, and that comes from Combat Jack and his co-host Premium Pete. Premium Pete always says this about being a father. Presence over presence. And that's what's up, man. It's good to see you, with your presence in the building at your daughter's back to school night, man. Enjoy that. And we'll catch you on the flip side, Illa. Let's see. Off Broadway 718 said ceiling, 9 wins and a sweep of Cowboys taking 1 each from Washington and Philly. I hope that's the case, bro. Wouldn't surprise me. Would not surprise me, man. But this schedule definitely presents, a ton of issues, man. It definitely does. I'm looking forward to seeing how it all shakes out. The New York Giants are in a much better position right now as far as the football team goes. And I'm willing to put Joe Shane's past in the past right now and allow him to see what he can do going into the 2025 season and also just going into the future, man. So we shall see, man. This was definitely a vibe today, a bit of a slow burner. I thought that this was going to be just a baby short kind of stream, man. But once people get in the building, I try to make it a point to highlight y'all comments and make sure that y'all can join the discussion, because to me, it's nothing worse than when you jump in on a stream for, not even just a Giants content creator, just any content creator or anybody out there, and you in the chat, looking like Jim Carrey in, what was that, Liar, Liar, or what was it? It was Bruce Almighty or one of those, and you get no response. I really, as a person who engages in some of these chats as well, there's nothing worse than that. So I try to always engage with you guys, man. So shout out to all of y'all that we're here from the beginning, that had a chance to chime in, that popped in and maybe in the middle of the stream. It has been pretty consistent numbers throughout this stream. So I see a lot of y'all have been here since the beginning. Salute to all of y'all, man. Let's throw some biceps in the chat before we get up out of here. Y'all know what it is. We're going to be trying to be going live every day. And tomorrow, I don't know if it'll be a live before the game, maybe after the game, but I will be live on Bleacher Report immediately at the conclusion of the game versus the New England Patriots. The game, I want to say kickoff is at 8 p.m., so that's going to be a bit of a late night stream. We are working on doing a bit of dual streams that, so we can send them to YouTube and send them to Bleacher Report at the same time, so you guys can get some extra content over here. I know a lot of y'all don't want to have to deal with downloading the Bleacher Report app, and quite frankly, the Bleacher Report app has been it's been tough. It's been tough. I ain't going to throw no shade, but it's been tough over there. They did a whole revamp and just completely changed up the app, and a lot of people are not happy about it. But I will be doing all New York Giants recaps immediately following the games over there on Bleacher Report for the entire duration of the season and for this last preseason game on Thursday. Also going to be doing some recaps of the New York Giants on Hard Knocks, being featured within the NFC East. That's going to be absolutely amazing. So y'all just keep your eyes peeled for a ton of content. I told y'all I want to experiment with possibly going live every day during the season, and I kind of wanted to do a little bit of a beta run of this today. So we're now 3 days in a row over here on Authentic and the Beard going live. I don't know. If we get a topic tomorrow, who knows? Maybe I'll just pop up and go live, before the game. And if I do, it'll be at 1 p.m. We're trying to keep the theme around 1 p.m., right around lunchtime, right around the afternoon, so people can, have an opportunity to pop in and, join this discussion. And hopefully y'all are enjoying this content that we are bringing to y'all. And again, if y'all like what we are doing over here on this small corner of the internet called Authentic and the Beard, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. But at the end of the day, man, we don't do this for likes, as my homie Chaz French always says. And he said it in one of his bars, y'all in it for likes, but we in it for life. And that's what I'm trying to get out of this, is more life. And it makes me a more, what's the word I'm looking for here? It makes me a more knowledgeable New York Giants fan, by being able to come up here and share these thoughts with y'all, and then possibly have you guys chime in on these conversations as well. Shout out to Erica in the building. She says, these lives get me through my afternoon. Great one as always. I appreciate you. Erica knows ball. Love the conversations we've been having over there on Twitter. I see you joining a lot of the Twitter spaces and whatnot. It definitely goes a long way when you come over here and support what we're doing over here on the channel. Door Gunner said, hit that like button, man. Y'all do what y'all do. If you feel like you want to hit the like button, go ahead and hit the like button. It's nothing for me, man. I've been trying to just convince myself, like, look, just bring value to the Giants community, to the NFL community. The rest will take care of itself. Off Broadway 718 said, the live floats me through work as well. Salute, man. That's what's up, man. And I have the luxury of being able to work from home here in my recording studio. And, I know a lot of people got to get up, go out there, sometimes commute on public transportation. And, the weeks can be tough, man. I know what it's like to do that. I've definitely put in my fair share of the grind, and I know what that's like. And, when you get to, see some content from your team during the week, it'll always make that week go by faster. And honestly, that is a big part of why I'm trying to go live every day, not only to bring more attention to what we're doing over here, because I feel like nobody really brings the data and the nuggets that me and the Beard bring to the Giants community and the NFC East community. I try to go over as much data as possible and give you guys as much numbers and try to get you guys as familiar with as many numbers as I am, and just share that knowledge when I'm in here researching and digging, because I got the time to do it. And I just think that there's no other channels that really focus on the gems and the nuggets, as we call them over here. I see people do streams about, like, quarterbacks being drafted or quarterbacks going in the first round, and they don't even give you data on like how many quarterbacks have played in the first round and stuff like that. And I just feel like that's doing the community a disservice. So I always try to bring y'all as much data, as many gems, and as many nuggets as I can possibly bring y'all. Bookend says, here's to better Sundays this year, man. And he put up one of those, and I'm right there with you, man. That's going to be the last one we feature on today. But I hope that Bookend is right, man, because last year I watched the games from my seat right here in the studio turned that way, and I would rarely get up, if ever. And the preseason got me standing up, man. Jaxson Dart going out there, throwing touchdowns to little Jordan Humphrey, going out there and throwing touchdowns, consecutive in games. It's a beautiful thing. Seeing Russell Wilson go out there and hit Bo Collins on an 80-yard bomb, 55 yards through the air. I love this. That makes me stand up out my seat. And it makes me remember why I got off into creating content for the New York Giants in the first place. So I'm hoping that that's the case this year and we can get some more wins. Dorgunner said Authentic going to be doing Giants draft stuff in October. I might get around to it a little bit earlier this year. Last year, I didn't get around to really looking at prospects until January. But, this season I might get a little bit, a little earlier head start on that. I remember having a conversation with my homie Monty, and he was like, by January, everybody's done their assessments on quarterbacks. And I totally disagree with that. Like, there are so many people that have came out and said it. Todd McShays of the world. Daniel Jeremiah told me to my face that he still had to finish out looking at some of the tape on some of these prospects. But for me, I do want to get an early, turn on some of these prospects. So I might start in December. And for those of y'all that want that early draft content, definitely go check out Monty. Go check out Sal from He's a Giant. Their podcast is called He's a Giant here on YouTube. And they, through the year, are going to be talking about prospects. They were very early on the Bruce Feldman's freak list about players that are on that list and trying to break it down last year. And I expect them to do that this year as well. But Dorgunner, you might be right, bro. You never know. You might be right. But that's going to do it here for this version of the Giant Overreaction. I cannot believe that this show went longer than yesterday's show. I really cannot believe that because, when I compiled the notes, I was like, this is going to be like a 30-minute show. But, Authentic be rapping, man. I like to wrap y'all up, and y'all like to talk in that chat as well. But I will catch y'all hopefully tomorrow. We'll see, man. We're trying to keep this streak alive here. And if we do go live tomorrow, that'll be 2 streams tomorrow. But if you want to tune in, check us out on Bleacher Report. That stream's going to be somewhere around probably 11:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, maybe around midnight. But that's going to do it for this version of the Giant Overreaction, man. Salute to y'all, man. I appreciate all of y'all rocking out with us today, man. Y'all know how we end every stream over here on Bleacher Report or over here on YouTube. I might correct. Keep raising that bar. Keep living those dreams, y'all, because the universe flows in Technicolor and surround sound. And a life without dreams is a life in black and white. Rest in peace to the podcast GOAT, Combat Jack, the New York legend. And that is a wrap. I will catch y'all on the flip side. I thank y'all again for being here today, man. Shout out to all of y'all who pulled up and joined this conversation. Y'all be blessed and enjoy the rest of y'all Wednesday afternoon, y'all. Peace.